Bharat Web3 Association. With Namaste Web3, we focus on making India Web3 ready. I'm your host for the evening, Mugdha Kalra. First and foremost, a very warm and heartfelt thanks to all the incredible audience here today. The hall is full. I'm so happy to see all of you. You have braved the rains to be here with us today. Despite the challenges posed by the weather, posed by traffic, your presence here demonstrates your unwavering commitment to the world of Web3. Today we gather here in a state that has proven its potential to become a prominent blockchain technology hub. Our earlier events in Ahmedabad, Pune, Bangalore, and Delhi got together industry leaders and policymakers on the same platform. In today's Namaste Web3 Hyderabad chapter, let's take a step forward and harness the power of blockchain to unlock new opportunities across various sectors. During the event today, we will explore synergies between blockchain technology and real-world applications, with the aim to drive Web3 adoption and shape a decentralized and transparent future. We hope to have great conversations today and come up with solutions as well. We have a fantastic lineup of guest speakers who will shed light on the transformative potential of blockchain technology. Before we begin the proceedings for the evening, we have a brief announcement. We have created a Telegram channel called Namaste Web3, where we will keep the dialogue on and we will inform you about the subsequent chapters. So if you could all just take out your mobile phones, scan that QR code, and join all of us. And the ones who have joined us online, well, this is your opportunity also. You are zoomed in to this QR code and join us on this channel. And now let's take a look at our Namaste Web3 journey so far.
The latest innovation in the internet space, Web3, is a revolutionary technology that is changing the way we interact online. It offers more secure, transparent, and efficient decentralized applications that have the potential to transform various industries. CoinDCX and Forbes India designed Namaste Web3 to introduce the potential of Web3 across India and showcase its benefits.
India's presidency of the G20 comes at a very opportune time. In recent years, particularly since the pandemic, the image of India has dramatically changed around the world.
This initiative will travel to major cities across India to hold a wide range of future-forward discussions around the innovation and how it can aid business growth in various sectors. It has already been successful in different cities: Bengaluru, New Delhi, Ahmedabad, and Pune, where experts and industry leaders discussed various aspects of Web3.
Where individuals will have control. A developer base of approximately 2.8, just under 3 million 2 years ago. It is also projected to have the most developers by 2023.
Including DeFi, Metaverse, DApp development, empowering developers, the role of Web3 in India's tech capability, and fulfilling the $5 trillion economy vision. Ideas were also exchanged on leveraging India's G20 presidency to develop VDA regulatory principles. But this is just the beginning. More insightful conversations await in different cities. Join us at Namaste Web3 and be a part of the future of the internet.
Oh, well, there's just so much to be done, but I can tell you one thing, with all the events that we've been doing and all the cities that we've been going to and the kind of mix that we get into and the kind of feedback that we get with these events that we're doing, at least what we're doing is getting all stakeholders under one roof, and there's a lot of conversation, I can assure you, that is going on with this.
Forbes India and CoinDCX present Namaste Web3, making India Web3 ready.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to kickstart the proceedings for the evening. Today, Web3 has emerged as a groundbreaking paradigm, revolutionizing the way we interact, transact, and engage with the internet. However, alongside its immense potential comes regulatory considerations that must be carefully navigated to foster responsible and sustainable growth. And the role of a regulatory sandbox becomes vital in addressing these considerations and supporting the development of Web3 technologies. Now, these regulatory sandboxes provide a controlled testing environment where innovators can explore and experiment. I'm happy to inform that earlier this year, the Telangana government's Information Technology, Electronics and Communication Department signed an MOU with the esteemed Bharat Web3 Association, BWA, to build a thriving Web3 ecosystem in the state. Now, this MOU marks the beginning of a promising partnership and sets the stage for collaborative discussions between these two entities. To understand more about this partnership and the role of regulatory sandbox in Web3 development, I would like to invite our special guest for the evening. Please put your hands together for Mr. Dilip Shenoy, Chairman, Bharat Web3 Association. Over to you.
So thank you, Mugdha, and I think Manisha is the proverbial, bad penny that has dropped again. I think because of the change of the format, I was to go into regulatory sandboxes after an opening address by Mr. Ranjan. So, and while I was sitting there in a usual style, Manisha said, can you also talk about the intersection of AI and blockchain before you go into regulatory sandbox? And by the way, I'm not giving you more time. So, if you look at it, and I'll just talk about that, but first about Bharat Web3 Association. We are a very newly formed association here, and I have one of our directors, Mr. Kiran Vivekananda, also sitting here, and many of our members sitting here. We are really formed with the fundamental basis to educate people about what Web3 is. It's like the elephant and the blind men. You look at, they look at the elephant from different angles. So everybody who looks at Web3 from a certain perspective comes up with a different view. We also provide a collaborative effort, and the collaborative effort of the regulatory sandbox with Telangana. We just had a collaborative meeting in the room there. And we promote the growth of Web3 through business development and also through creating, encouraging regulatory framework here. We collaborate with international organizations, whether it's the EU, Singapore, or Canada. Very, very quickly, before I go into the regulatory sandbox, blockchain and AI. Blockchain and, let's say, crypto, to use the word, were the flavor of the month before AI came in and ChatGPT onboarded 100 million customers in a record point of time. But then the flavor turned to Thread, which did it faster. But both blockchain technology and AI are complementary strengths. Blockchain, of course, has a secure, transparent way to store and share data, while AI analyzes vast amounts of data to provide insights and prediction. Of course, together, and that's what a lot of you in the audience may be doing and others around the world, how do we integrate it and create new applications that could benefit various industries? Blockchain is very interesting, it's transparent, immutable. How can it make AI's decision-making more trustworthy? It can provide a way to audit AI's decisions, making it easier to understand why AI made that decision. And the two technologies have actually started to transform various industries, including finance, healthcare, logistics. And, there are various market sizes. Blockchain technology expected to go from 3 billion in 2020 to about 39.7 billion by 2025. AI market 190.6 billion by 2025, growing at nearly 40% CAGR. And of course, the convergence that we see now is going to create significant market opportunities for innovation and growth and provide many of you technologists and other companies in the audience an opportunity to lead the world together with, lead the state and lead the world here. I think one of the most significant applications would be in the area of cybersecurity, because that is a great threat to the entire system here. It is possible to actually combine the two and create more secure and efficient cybersecurity systems for there. India's artificial intelligence market, 673 million in 2022. And there, you open the page in the morning, you'll get a different figure. You open different websites, you'll get different figure. Some say 3.9 billion, some say 5 billion by 2029. But the only thing common is they're all predicting an upward of 35% of CAGR every year. And very interesting, the blockchain market in India is supposed to grow at a 47.3 CAGR over the same period. So it's a very interesting combination. And of course, first the NASSCOM study, then other studies saying that the Web3 market is going to be 1.1 trillion by 2032. So I think that's the introduction to blockchain, AI, Web3, convergence, market size figures. But talking about regulatory sandbox and Web3 development here. So whenever you have new technology, whenever you have digital technology, even the RBI has a digital sandbox in Bangalore, right? So different industries, when new technologies come in, which are at the intersection of areas where the regulation is not clear, such as, let's say, Web3, with innovations across segments such as blockchain, decentralized finance, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, tokens, also tokenization. And there's a need for appropriate regulation that can grow, enable the growth to have faster. So this is where a regulatory sandbox, and Mugdha talked about it when she introduced it, plays a crucial role in facilitating responsible and sustainable Web3 development. A sandbox is isolated but functional, is a testing environment where applications and technologies could be tested with the objective of fostering innovation, which then the regulators can use to learn about new technologies and emerging trends, as well as identify the associated risks and then look at how to regulate it going forward. There is a lot of regulatory, not uncertainty, but regulatory knowledge, lack of regulatory knowledge on how regulation in the current aspect will play out in different innovations that are being done in the Web3 space, and therefore the sandbox, and BWA is privileged to partner with Telangana on the Web3 regulatory sandbox. It'll actually help in early stages of actually even defining the principles of what the principles of regulation should be. Work with, when you start looking at a particular application of this in a particular area, you come across multiple regulations, multiple things, multiple risks, a lot of other things associated with that. How do you actually put it in a way that removes the risk, provides clarity to the investor, provides comfort to the customer, and enables the government to be absolutely sure that the whole ecosystem of customer, the user, the creator, everyone is actually doing it in a way that doesn't transgress any policy approach or doesn't provide a threat to cybersecurity, a threat or doesn't provide an avenue for money laundering or doesn't enable tax evasion, etc. There are many regulatory sandboxes around the world. The European Commission in 2018 developed a partnership, a blockchain partnership, and created infrastructure there. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau of US actually announced the launch of a regulatory sandbox aimed to encourage crypto and blockchain technology. Despite what you're reading in the paper, the sandbox still exists. In 2021, the UK Financial Conduct Authority gave 20 companies access to its regulatory sandbox services in following exactly the same process that the Telangana government actually did. The UBS in Switzerland also did something. So it actually provides a avenue between developers and regulators and promoters to collaborate and communicate regularly on issues that were essential, let's say in the context of Telangana here, or if we take the RBI sandbox in Bangalore in the context of India and maybe in the context of the world, to gain a deeper understanding of the innovative technologies and the potential impact on different parts of the ecosystem where the regulators have a concern, and they give the developers timely feedback from the regulators. We hope from BWA's thing that other states also follow the example of Telangana, because each state may have its different problems. And it allows the regulators to tailor regulations specifically for Web3 development and striking that balance between encouraging innovation and protecting consumer interests, identifying and mitigating risks, and nurturing startups and entrepreneurs. We believe that as the Web3 system continues to flourish, and now with the injection of the whole mix of AI into it, and we don't know what we might wake up to tomorrow or day after. Incidentally, the EU has just released a paper, Web 4.0, so it's a very interesting thing. But really, the use case developers can present their cases to the regulator and legal firms can help draft regulation. Also, the use cases and lessons which are there could identify best practices which could be replicated and done by other people. And of course, like work with other sectors like AI to understand the interface and identify additional regulatory and other challenges as well as present solutions. I think the regulatory sandbox involve a coordinated effort to create and improve existing regulations for a particular industry by working with all the regulatory agencies involved in that industry. For example, we were just talking about a company in India which is like doing fractional ownership of EVs, right? And there's a driver. Now, how does that play out in insurance? How does that play out in accident of the vehicle? Who is liable? What happens? We are all fractional owners of that EV, and the EV has been driven by a person who doesn't have a license. So what's the responsibility? I'm just telling you what are the complexities that we need to look at in here. And I think these sandboxes can be used in the early stage of writing regulations where there isn't an existing framework in place. As these different technologies, different approaches gain popularity and gain users, regulations and other security aspects of all of this have to be adhered to. And how do you enable it? How do you monitor it? And I think regulatory sandboxes, like I said, have also been extended to the virtual world of cryptocurrencies, where financial regulators are offering authorized businesses the possibility of testing blockchain products. I talked about the 2021 UK's Financial Conduct Authority, which gave 20 companies the access to regulatory sandbox services. So just to sum up, BWA promoting the interest of this industry, educating, cooperating and developing growth. 2, AI and blockchain have large independent markets projected to grow at 35 or 40% CAGR over the next few years. Web3 are going to reach 1.1 trillion by 2032. Regulatory sandbox, very essential. Telangana has taken a lead to create the interface between developers and the regulatory agencies to test out their products. So when they move from the sandbox to real world, they are not faced with regulatory uncertainty or not faced by regulatory blockages, because all the time and money and the intellect that they have invested in developing that product needs to actually find a real market application. Many examples around the world. Telangana has led in India. More states should come in. We need national level sandboxes too. So thank you very much for this opportunity and have a great evening ahead. I look forward to hearing the other speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Shenoy, for kick-starting and actually setting the spirit of the evening. You've already done a massive job. What two speakers were going to do, you've already done that, sir. All right. Today here at Namaste Web3, we have for you two panel discussions and a very special fireside chat with industry leaders who will delve into the potential of blockchain. And ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to our first panel discussion, I have a very exciting announcement to make. CoinDCX is one of the leading Web3 players in India, and they are organizing the biggest Web3 event this year, and the event's called Unfold 23. Now, Unfold 23 is a global event aimed at promoting blockchain, Web3, and the crypto ecosystem among investors, developers, and blockchain enthusiasts. It was launched in 2022, and the event was a massive success with top industry speakers like Balaji Srinivasan, Sandeep Nailwal, Shailesh Lakhani, and Hemant Mohapatra sharing their insights with the audiences. And this year, Unfold 23 is expected to be even bigger and better. Now, this event will feature the world's largest multi-chain, multi-protocol hackathon, where over 1,000 developers are expected. Additionally, there will be over 100 booths highlighting various products and projects, offering a glimpse into the latest innovations in the industry. So yeah, mark your calendars and don't miss this opportunity to be part of the most significant Web3 event of the year. We are also showing a QR code there. You can scan that to pre-register for this event for Unfold 2023 and get exclusive, discounted early bird access. We're going to hold that for you for a little while so that you can scan the QR code. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for the first panel discussion of the evening. It's called Revolutionizing India's Digital Landscape, Harnessing the Power of Blockchain Technology and VDA. By embracing blockchain, India can unlock new opportunities, drive economic growth, and establish itself as a leader in the digital era. To discuss this and more, may I please invite Manisha Gupta, editor and Commodities and Currencies from CNBC TV 18, and to come up on stage with her fellow panelists. Put your hands together for Rajesh Dudu, Global Business Head, Emerging Technology, Tech Mahindra; Prasanna Lohar, CEO, Blockstack; Pankaj Diwan, Co-founder, India Blockchain Forum; and lastly, welcome Satish Mishra, VP Engineering, CoinDCX and Octo. Over to you, Manisha.
Mugdha, thank you so much for that. Mr. Shenoy, that was an absolute kickstart to the event there, and you spoke almost everything, elaborated on the most important points as well. You know, as Mugdha was also saying that we've been to Delhi, we've been to Ahmedabad and Bengaluru and Pune, and Hyderabad always has this closer to heart kind of a space, because we do understand the IT and technology commitment that the state has here. Blockchain is a subject, and Mr. Shenoy, I was sitting Googling on, Web4 on what that really meant. So clearly, once you think you've read something and you understand something, and there comes something absolutely new and path-breaking which you start to read upon, and it takes time to understand those things. I remember Sandeep telling me once that you have to read at least 14 to 16 hours a day if you have to understand everything about blockchain, and you have to keep at it. I mean, clearly not a possibility, but there is so much to learn, so much feedback, so much on-ground interactions that we've had because of this event and these series which takes us to various states and cities as well. Well, blockchain, and as Mr. Shenoy pointed out as well, there's just so much happening. There's Web 3.0, NFT is something that he was just mentioning to us on the table right now. We do understand a lot of potential that this space has. There is various real use cases which are being worked upon. We have all these panelists who are working deeply, passionately into this, and I will immediately get onto this conversation, and I'll start with you first.
Sure, Manisha.
And a first question to all my panelists first. Where do you see blockchain standing right now as it is?
Oh, it's it's come a long way ever since its inception in India. When I joined Tech Mahindra way back in 2018, and when I used to go and speak to the CXOs either in India or globally, there used to be one equation which is firmly imprinted in their minds. Blockchain is equal to Bitcoin, and it was a irreversible equation. From that particular point to the current one, where they realized that blockchain is a facilitated technology, and blockchain is not Bitcoin alone, blockchain is not cryptocurrency alone, has been a humongous amount of advancements in terms of the understanding of the technology, both in the enterprise segment as well as the retail segment. What has happened over a period of time, people have realized that there is a trust deficit in the world, and that trust deficit is also there in the enterprise segment. And blockchain is turning out to be a magical solution to at least address that particular trust deficit. And the trust deficit is there whether it comes to business to customer interactions or a business to business interactions, right? A number of use cases have come to the fore. For example, if you look at trade finance, invoice discounting on trade finance, a lot of banks have come together with an intent to promote trade finance so that duplicate invoices do not get funded and two banks do not fund the same invoice. From a KYC perspective, banks are discussing about in terms of get the KYC document, put it on a blockchain and use it downstream or upstream. You don't have to do it every time you need a service. From a supply chain tracking perspective, from a farm to fork or from a farm to store, a lot of implementations have come in blockchain, and thanks to a lot of cyber attacks, now the industry is looking at blockchain as a game changer, because when you look at the current industry, most of it is on centralized architectures, which means there is a single point of failure, and when you have distributed denial of service attacks, the one single point of failure goes down. With blockchain, you can bring in decentralized technologies wherein there is no single point of failure, and it will be able to serve as a foolproof kind of a system. So I can go on talking about it, but the good thing is the world's largest implementation of blockchain exists in India, which is 800 million telecoms subscribers, insulating from spam calls and spam text using blockchain. Yeah, you guys may ask me, why am I still getting spam calls? They are coming from unregistered telemarketeers and not from the registered telemarketeers. Happy to talk more.
Big numbers, and of course there's just so many use cases. Pankaj, this one is to you. I follow commodities very closely, and it was a moment for me when De Beers message saying that, hey, we're getting on blockchain. So each diamond that we're doing is on blockchain now. And then came BHP Billiton, their copper mines were on blockchain. And we have seen metaverse as an immersive experience that we've seen across board now, so many more companies getting into it. But with that comes challenges. So my question to you is on that. What are the strategies that need to be worked upon? Rajesh has spoken all positive right now, but let's start getting in a bit of strategy making, measures, challenges that you see there.
Right, so right question to the wrong person because all the people sitting on the panel here are probably in some way big fans of blockchain technology. But then yes, with every emerging technology, there are challenges. And I think some of us here would have seen these challenges pre-internet days. I mean, my career started when I gave the seminar in my final year on engineering about internet, and everything I spoke about internet was in future tense. So in that sense, it's a deja vu moment that after 20 years, we are talking about blockchain in the same way, right? But I think a lot of water has flown under all the bridges. But yes, I think blockchain typically, because it's a foundational technology, it's also going to affect every aspect of our life, which means there has to be a step-by-step regulated approach. And I think governments across the world are grappling with this, because unlike probably the earlier technologies like internet or VoIP or mobile, where there was some time for them to breathe and then understand and go step by step, today the whole world is connected and every day we see so many changes, so much of innovation, and that is where I think the governments are grappling. So for sure, we need to have innovation. At the same time, we need to have nuanced discussions, regulation. And in that sense, I think we are lucky to be sitting in Hyderabad, where the government of Telangana has, taken these proactive steps in terms of creating a regulatory sandbox. And at least, not to undermine anyone else here in the audience, but two people sitting on the stage, Rajesh, who's been driving on the enterprise front, and Prasanna, who's been driving it in the ecosystem front. I think champions like these are kind of working together with the government, working with the ecosystem, working within the corporate world to bring everyone on a single, page, have dialogue, because that's the need of the hour. We all need to work together, sit together. In fact, just before this panel, there was a meeting where the same thing was being discussed. So I think that's where we are. There are obviously challenges, but I would just want to say that, these are not unforeseen challenges. These are common things which happen with any emerging technology. So I think it's a matter of time when things will settle down.
I remember this one instance, Prasanna, this one is to you. And we were in Delhi, and while, when you talk about blockchain and 3.0, almost everybody in the audience is geek, nerdy. So there were some people sitting there saying, explain it to us in a layman language and tell us how it impacts my daily life.
Yeah, I think good. I think when you go back in 80s, 90s, or when you go back in early 2000 or 2008, in every era we have seen some kind of a transformation. Imagine my father used to send me to the bank branch to take out some money, right? So that was a transaction where I had to come out, go to the bank branch, and again come back. There's maybe 1 hour kind of a time it is required. And that is why it was the era of a 1G or 2G. So while a lot of innovation technologies are coming on communication from 1G, 2G, 3G, and now we are knocking the door of 5G, our PM announces for the 6G, that consumer behavior changes, right? So when you talk about day-to-day life, the way I used to interact with the shop owner, or today I interact with on a Flipkarts or any of those Bank Bazaar to go for a service. Why? Because there is a shift on a technology. How I was operating into 90s, followed by open internet came in 95. How I was operating on a 2008 onwards with the mobile phones, and after huge data adoption after 2016 or post-COVID. That is how lifestyle has changed. So I will treat it as a traditional era to digital era. So today we are in digital era, knocking in the door of intelligent era, where customer has become intelligent, service providers are become intelligent, backed by data or API or AI we typically talk. And we are going to knock another door, which is going to be autonomous era, where customers will be, or lifestyle will be by devices, or where marketplaces will drive all the finances on any of those services. So communication plays major role, while there are a lot of changes happen on interface or in the back end, from FoxPro to RDBMS to these days we talk about blockchains and so on. So typically that's how it is changed. Now when we talk about the question before challenge and why blockchain is coming to our life, or why this concept is coming to my life. Because the way internet came, and it doesn't came all of a sudden with all the systems, say example bank. It doesn't give core banking, mobile banking, internet banking, and there are almost 150 plus applications. They didn't come on day one. They always came over a period of time based upon the various business model, various demands. We used to have only one type of loan, only loan. Now today we have consumer loan, the loans are available on Chromas, and so based upon need, we kept on adding multiple systems. We kept on adding multiple processes and multiple stakeholders in the whole system. That is how we created a gap of a trust. We created many more intermediaries to handle that transaction with a MasterCard, Visa, or Ola, or Uber. And now we are saying that we have created a trust gap in our lifestyle. Now let us bring on this gap or nullify these gaps. Imagine while we created a lot of automations, we created a lot of security controls also. We created password, which was not existing in 80s. We created 2FA mechanisms after 2014, and which was not existing. Now, on top of that, we say, let us minimize this. While Rajesh has guided rightly, this trust gap which is there in our day-to-day life, from where my food is coming, from where I am ordering some apparel, is it really coming from there? My pharmaceutical medicines. So there are a lot of gaps, and we have seen these gaps are created by human beings because of various subsystems we added. We kept on adding. So blockchain comes and says, as a lifestyle, I will really resolve or give an opportunity to resolve many of these business models. Say example, let's talk about money. The way we have created paper money followed by UPS and so on, we say let us bring on a CBDC which will remove that settlement aspect which is in the back end. While UPS solved a lot of things in the front for a human life, or that could be the one example, right? So I think that's how blockchain comes and says that I will automate all of these things, but to do that I need to bring on everybody on that chain. That is a maybe example of consortium things. So to do that as a day-to-day life, we cannot go and say, hey banks or hey healthcare companies or insurance companies, let us change everything in a one day. Example of SMS systems, I think there was a 2 times rollback, right? Banks were not ready to really adopt, right? So huge, it's not technology is a challenge, but bringing on everybody on the same consensus, this is how it's going to change the investment which we have done since so many years, right? So I think CBDC or some satellite kind of ecosystem will keep on changing. So I think while we are today in the era of digital banking, where your millennials are asking for a metaverse or a digital asset kind of a things, that way we have created this loan system so far. Tomorrow's loan could be against digital assets, or tomorrow's loan could be micro loans, and different kind of loans, right? So different kind of models are coming. So best to see that regulator, government anticipate these changes are going to come in a day-to-day life. But how to do that? It's a very, very big question where I think as a challenge, skill set challenge or technology itself is a challenging. It's easy to say that it's very secure, and it's easy to say that very, very nice. But when you actually go for the implementation, today CBDC is struggling with the performance, right? How do we do that? So in a nutshell, just to answer your question, as a human being, we always look at what next for me. So while we are sitting in the era of where we have seen movies in the theater, we have seen the movies on OTT, and tomorrow we want to see movies wherever I am, maybe in a metaverse or a verse, or maybe we would like to create those movies all of a sudden the way we want, the kind of happiness we want, right? I think so, and technology gives that adoption. Yes, with the combination of communication technology, maybe 5G, 6G, along with in the back end blockchain and AI. In the front could be mobile web so far. Now we are knocking the door of IoT and metaverse in the front. And it has to be really go well with the intermediate layers, APIs, open banking, or smart contracts. So I think that's how we will create day-to-day life experiences, and it will be driven by the customer itself. While we may keep studying, but customer will say, this is something happening in another industry, please bring on. Yeah.
Just to add to what Prasanna has said, a lot of people ask in terms of what you were also alluding to, how is Web3 different from Web 2 or 2.5? There are 3 fundamental differences. For all your interactions on the web today, you don't have right to monetize without the need to depend on an intermediary. So when Web3 comes, the expectation is that you can monetize without those intermediaries. Likewise, in the current web interactions, you do not have right to forget and you do not have right to control. So when all these 3 components are addressed, that's Web3.
I'll just add 10 seconds.
Both of you can just talk.
So as a lifestyle, let's say example of a banking where I used to go to bank branch to open a bank account. 35 days. I was so happy in the 2000, I must have referred HDFC Bank, please go there and open a bank account. But today in the era of digital, I see that use Aadhaar or eKYC mechanism and create a bank account. Typically, it takes 5,000 to 10,000 rupees for a bank to open a bank account. And this customer is not happy with that bank, goes to another bank, that's a burden for the second bank, or maybe for third or fifth. Blockchain bringing it together, that KYC is already categorized and put it in a decentralized way, and customer goes there and provides a DKYC number, that ownership is a transfer to the bank B with some kind of a fees, right? So that's a day-to-day life, maybe not actually impacting the customers, but in the back end, the way we have created systems, where what Rajesh has pointed out, the customer will give an consent, yes, bring on my KYC, use my KYC, but that to use it only for 2 months, because I'm going to close my account after 2 months. Today, that facility is not there. Today, we give Aadhaar with all 14 parameters, and it is forever there. I think that's how Web3 will change the.
Okay, this is quite exciting, and there's just so much to learn, and there's so much follow-up questions that I want to ask you guys as well, but we have to get Satish in this conversation too. Satish, what is your opening comment on this? So whether it's about businesses, individuals, potential, transparency, security, efficiency, we've had this panel speak almost about everything.
I think I will specifically talk about the trust that he mentioned, right? We all in last 1 or 2 months or 3 months, we saw how AI is taking place. We are seeing a lot of celebrities dancing on the Twitter, but then someone will say this is not the real video because someone else has created. Maybe someone probably will post a video of you spreading some fake news. AI will do that. What will rescue is the blockchain. Okay, because on the blockchain actually you can prove the identity, you can prove the content that who has created. I think we have seen a lot of blockchain use cases already happening. We are seeing in the health record, we are seeing in the supply chain management. Governments are using it to distribute funds. Governments are using it to distribute seeds and all. But I think the next use case is coming. I think the next threat is coming is the AI. And for that rescue is nothing but the blockchain and the NFT to prove that, yeah, this is done. This is the person who has said this, and this is the reality. So I think that's the next use case that is coming.
All right. Well, yes, this doesn't stop at all. I mean, from Web3 to what's happening in the markets, and CBDC, of course, is a different deal altogether. There's so much conversation that we can have on this. But let me come to each one of you now with your individual experience. Well, we've spoken to representatives from TCS and Wipro and Infosys as well. So all big companies are getting into blockchain in one sense or the other. What is it that Tech Mahindra is doing right now? What are the use cases that you see? What are the learning from the global markets as well?
Sure, definitely. So when when this industry began, blockchain was a standalone technology. Going forward, it won't be a standalone technology per se. It is going to become an infrastructure layer into a number of things. And the pandemic has taught us that our supply chains are fragile. The supply chains are fragile, and the fragility is not because the goods are not moving. It's the documents that enable the movement of goods. They're not flowing through easily. So now the digital supply chain that everybody is talking about, or the new age supply chain that everybody is talking about, that's where blockchain plays an important infrastructural role, where it facilitates the aggregation of all the documents instantaneously and leads to what we call as digital trading. And that digital trading will usher us into a world where you can carry custom goods, but you can drive through the borders. Today, like on highways, how you drive through without waiting for the toll to be paid. In a similar fashion, across the borders, the carriers carrying these goods can drive through. And we have demonstrated with a shipment of mangoes that originated from Brazil. They went on to the port of Rotterdam and eventually got delivered in Liverpool in London. And the entire truck has not been stopped anywhere across the border. That's number one. Number two, your question to Pankaj was about how do you engage in the digital interactions, right? Today, your wealth is not only about physical positions, your wealth is also about digital positions, where people can just copy and paste it. So again, blockchain plays an important role in safeguarding your digital interactions, your digital assets, and your digital positions via the non-fungible tokens. And obviously they are powering a lot of tokens, whether it's a utility token or a social token or a commerce token in a circular economy. That's number two. I've already spoken to you about the right to forget on internet, right to control on internet, and right to monetize. That will come through what we call as the self-sovereign identities. A lot of us are very happy to enable Google to authenticate us, but we don't know how many misauthentications that would have been carried out through a federated ID. So if you have to move from a federated ID to a digital identifier, again, blockchain plays an important role. Earlier I mentioned to you about cyber security. We're very happy sharing our passwords with the servers, but nobody asks the authenticity of the server to validate you. We are given to share our password with the server, and why can't it be vice versa? Why can't a server authenticate with you? That's where the zero knowledge proofs come into play. When they come into play powered by blockchain, You will have passwordless authentications. So these are the some of the things that we are driving at Tech Mahindra, not only in India, but globally. And these will be the game-changing solutions.
Absolutely. Talk to us also on what businesses and how much are the businesses here leveraging blockchain as a technology? What sectors? I mean, you talked about the mango truck, yes, but what sectors, what organizations are able to do it better than the others?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you go to customer and say, I want to offer you blockchain, the interest is very low because many feel that you come with a solution that is not needed here. And that has been the trap for blockchain adoption. So you have to basically keep it as an underlying technology, as an Intel insight. When you talk to them about digital supply chain, it resonates with them. When you're talking about creating a trusted middleware so that the data gets consolidated all across, it resonates with them. Now everybody talks about Gen AI. If you don't refer to Gen AI, people think the speaker is not erudite. So I will not make that risk, so I will refer to Gen AI in my conversation, right? And today, anybody can build an LLM. But what are they doing? They're doing a web crawl to get the underlying data. And LLM is giving you outputs which are not even reliable. For example, you can go and put in LLM, for example, in my own case, when I put my name in LLM, first it said employed with Tech Mahindra, done so much in the blockchain industry. When I said regenerate the response, it said I worked for Wipro. Regenerate worked for Infosys. Regenerate worked for IBM. So it made me work for everybody else, right? Because it's hallucinating. So there again, blockchain plays an important role to validate that particular data. Anybody can build the models, but the one who has access to a technology which makes the data governance, data democratization, and data access in a trusted manner, that's where it plays an important role. Again, blockchain plays an important role.
I'm going to send this to my daughter because every time I tell her something, she's going to, oh, wait, I'm going to Google this up. So clearly.
Absolutely.
Okay. Prasanna, this one is to you. So you are the economics guy here. What does, first of all, Blockstack does? What is your understanding? Where do you think that the markets are getting their efficiencies from? And so many challenges that Rajesh just pointed out. How are we looking to sort those?
Yeah, I think what Blockstack does typically around emerging technologies. Let's go back and see the banking the way we have created. Like I gave an example of a KYC where we onboard customer. Post onboard customer, there are many operations. When customer does a transaction, the transaction typically happens instantly, money is deducted immediately. But the merchant where transaction happened, maybe it would be a point of sale or e-commerce merchant, the money is given next day. Why? Because we have created this disconnected experience, right? And the way Ethereum or Bitcoin operates, which is without this intermediate. While they may operate in some other way, I think the way we operate in a regulated way, we can bring on blockchain and say, let that payout to the merchant happen instantaneously. That comes with the blockchain, right? Because everybody is on the same chain and we can give, that is how central bank digital currencies are coming and creating that structure that there will be no need of, at least less need of a settlement and reconciliation, which every bank operates. There are maybe minimum 15 to 20 guys who are just getting the files from MasterCard, switch, core banking, upload that file, take out those reports, giving those reports back to the acquiring bank, and then actual payout happens to the merchant. This is all manual process. Error may happen. So if error happens, there will be a call from merchant to contact center. What has happened? Or there are some areas like where we have chargebacks. So I think the way we have created this banking only around payment, there are a lot of huge opportunity to bring on. So at a Blockstack, we created a experience so-called Pay Circle, wherein the settlement happens instantaneously. So we are live in US. We are technically live. We'll open it, and for sure we'll be one of those competitors with the Pay Circle, Venmos, and so on. So that's the one experience. And apart from that, the way I have seen my banking career, like reporting of a fraud. Typically, if a fraud happens in a bank, I had to, as a vigilance department, I had to report this fraud to RBI. So that RBI can narrate this fraud or that fraudulent data to another NBFCs and banks, so that they should not onboard the same customer, right? So that he should not be another Malyas or another Nirav Modi, so on. This whole process of reporting fraud from day one and appearing of that fraud in a central fraud registry for another NBFCs or bank, typically the 40 to 55 days. And in between, I don't know what will happen. So I think, imagine the reporting out fraud happens today and that data is immediately available to another banks or a set of banks or NBFCs. That brings on everybody on the same chain. So likewise, in my sessions to RBI or any of the bankers, we keep on through Blockstack or India Blockchain Forum, we keep on giving these ideas or brainstorming what all those top 50 use cases. There could be everything, as Rajesh said, every thing will come on that blockchain infrastructure. But what is the current priority is all about, right? My first session on CBDC was back in 2019 end. And I have seen or I have heard that RBI folks told me, just because of your session, we added that we are going to work on CBDC starting from 2020 February. It is in the news after budget, but 2 years they were already working on with some satellite system. So bringing on Blockstack, we want to really create that impact, what is going wrong or what is their opportunity to bring on not only blockchain but amalgamation of AI and the cloud. So that's quite a service, banking as a service or a platform we are bringing. We started with the payment, but certainly we look forward how every other ecosystem, because I was a technical architect for a bank where I dealt with almost 150 plus applications. So that experience and the experience where I was working for banks as a service provider through Worldline. So there are many gaps in the whole process. And I'm not saying these gaps are going to vanish overnight, but I think that's an aspiration as a Blockstack and various partners, right? It's not only, there are many partners, so wherever we go, we talk about these use cases, look at if some other partners have already done that. Zero knowledge proof, which is something which we are working with one of those top payment aggregator who is governed by 5 different regulators. They sit on that kind of emergency that any regulator may come and say that your license is vanished because you have done something wrong here. Where I think AI plus blockchain, where this is how it should happen on day-to-day basis. I think I can keep talking, but in a nutshell, what we are looking at, there are gaps in financial ecosystems. How do we mitigate this gap with not with a bigger change, but a smaller change, and eventually handholding. It's not like every bank knows blockchain. It's not that every bank has a leader who knows blockchain. So we are taking step by step. Step 1 could be what is blockchain. We bring on top management and various stakeholders within a bank, make them understand what is Web3, what is blockchain, what is AI. We ask them, now tell us the gaps. Connect those dots in the back end, and they immediately come up. Yes, this is how it should be done. This is how it should be done. So there we come as a service provider and make and show this the savings around that.
So would you say that the approach to digital assets vis-a-vis the physical assets really seems to be changing? There is this willingness to learn?
Absolutely, that willingness is there, but absolutely the way digital assets are coming up heavily. I think in India it's less of an adoption, while maybe there is a challenge or there is no traction around the regulation to bring on. But I think ecosystem is really bringing on, knocking what needs to be done in my, don't quote me outside of the rim, RBI is already studying. We have already assigned this work, some of the agencies, what we should do around digital assets. I think one of the regulator, IFSCA, who has run some of the cohorts around impact finance, how Web3 or a digital asset could be useful for some of these things. I think in a nutshell, some of the companies we bring out from outside to IFSCA, some of them are already working on impact finance. So I think JPMs, ONX, they are giving some knowledge to some of the banks who are having some headquarters or in GIFT City. I think it's a momentum, and I think in a bottom line is that inclination is there. As a RBI or as a bank, they don't want to lose out every financial transaction. Typically, by example, it is happening on metaverse, or it is happening on some game, and typically it happens through some tokens or some cryptos. So that vision is there. We should not miss. We should have a UPI or some card working there. So how it happens? Also they have to handhold, understand what is digital asset, various frameworks around that. I think the discussion which was happening earlier, I think similar kind of a discussion are happening in many forums. So let's look forward as soon as possible. It should be useful for the ecosystem.
Oh, well, absolutely. Inclusivity is something that will take us where we want it to be. Satish, this one is to you, and I do understand that CoinDCX as well is doing a lot of things on, when you look at Web3, this is one of those events here. How are you looking at newcomers being onboarded onto this one? What are the challenges that you're facing, and what work is being done to sort those things out?
Sure, I think that's very interesting, and that's very close to my heart, that question, because see, I think the community, engineering community, technology community, it's building a lot of Web3 tech, right? There are so many blockchains out, there are tokens, there are protocols investing. There's so much of the complexity. And it's a gold rush. Like everyone wants to take part into that. And then there are scammers. Like they're scamming people like anything. Okay. And even a common person thinks that they want to participate into that, but they are too afraid to take part into that. That is the major problem that we are trying to solve. We have created our app, Octo, spells OKTO, which it gives you a self-custody, but without you worrying about your private key. Then it like solves your all problems of getting into that Web3 ecosystem. Just like do your Web2 kind of a login, and you get your entry to Web3 ecosystem. We have a mission that the app should, when any person should look at that app, they should look at that app like a big brother who's actually holding your hand and taking into a very complex territory and helping you to walk through that territory and gain benefits out of it. And of course, the technical problems are really very challenging, which our engineers solve. Every day, our engineers, I think, our problems are not something that you can Google and you can find a solution on that. Because it's everyone is facing, right? Our systems that we are building, they interact with the systems with the community is building. And that's very unpredictable system. Gas fees is fluctuating. Protocols, nodes are getting down or they are not working. So it's like huge. The problems are, but engineers actually like to solve that problem. We like to solve that problem. That's why we are enjoying that work. Try that app. It's an investment app. You don't have to add money. You can just explore the app. Probably you will explore it for a week and then you'll realize, yeah, it's worth putting some money and trying this instead of getting confused into that Web3 ecosystem that where should I start? I think that is the app you should start with.
So when you talk about an older brother in name of an app, are these tools user-friendly? Because that's yet another question that we get from so many people. Well, yes, it's transparent. Yes, I can access information, my information, anytime, anywhere. But is it really that easy to do that?
No, it's not that easy to do that. Like, for example, the tools that we have, there is Etherscan, BSC scan. You can track your transactions. You can track wallets. You can actually track people who are making big money in cryptos, and you can follow them. But it's not that easy. It's not easy for everyone. That is where like apps which companies like CoinDCX are building to help people navigate that system.
Pankaj, this one is to you. Let's talk airports and aviation. There are so many headlines onto this space, but what are you doing and how is that helping?
Right. So I think it's very interesting that some of the traditional companies also want to have a digital bite. They don't want to be left out. And in that sense, I think GMR Group and GMR Innovex, where I'm working closely with them to set up the Blockchain Center of Excellence, is doing some really kick-ass work. In fact, people like Rajesh, Prasanna are all advisors to that blockchain COE. And to start with, we are identifying a lot of use cases because if you understand, airports are microcosms, and today we are talking about airport cities. So from hospitality to retail to education to entertainment, I think everything is part of the airport ecosystem. And it's a very classic example of multiple stakeholders doing transactions all the time. And as a user, we always feel a very disjointed, disconnected experience. I book my ticket on some place, I redeem it somewhere else, I buy something on the airport, the loyalty points, I redeem it some other place. So it's a very disjointed experience, and ideally airports are also gateway to the city. So at some point of time it should be end to end from the time I start from my home to the time I return back home, right? And that is where we are trying to identify use cases, create some consortiums, get the airlines, get the logistic players. So be it in supply chain management on the logistic side, be it in terms of user experience, bring the ticketing partners, airline partners, building those consortiums, brainstorming, identifying use cases and creating some POCs with startup partners in terms of co-innovation, because today we don't live in a world where we want to build everything, right? We want to harness the power of startups, and that is the kind of work that we are doing. It's still early days, about 6 months, 8 months that we've started this Blockchain Center of Excellence, but I think it's going great. We see more and more parties interested in participating. So hopefully we will have something out of the stable very soon.
How far are we from that perfect world that you just talked about?
Just about a few days.
Days here or Mars or Jupiter? What days are we talking about?
That's for everyone to guess. But I think, you know, human beings are never satisfied. And I think that's the best part about it. So what is your understanding of perfect today may become a very thankless thing tomorrow, right? And I think that's how it should be. Dissatisfaction is the seed for innovation. So being dissatisfied is actually a good thing. So there's nothing like perfection in the world of innovation and technology. And we all earn our bread because there are people who are dissatisfied. So hopefully the dissatisfaction continues.
And as they say, bechaniya lekar chal rahe ho to zinda ho tum. So I think we all need that restless energy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so a final comment from all of you, and I'll start with you, Pankaj, first. So give me a scenario 5 years from now with whatever is happening in the street right now. Where do you see blockchain? Crystal gazing this is.
Yeah, so, if you look at it, I'll tell you what we were told 5 years back. People would sympathize, people would be sarcastic and say blockchain is a solution looking for a problem. That will certainly change. We will no longer have those kind of discussions. We'll also probably not have discussions in terms of some of the regulatory aspects and all that. So hopefully you'll definitely see some real use cases. In fact, even today, because blockchain is a back-end technology, a lot of people don't appreciate that blockchain is being used. For example, how many people know that spam registry is already on blockchain? How many people know that the Digi Yatra that all of you are now using is actually on blockchain? How many of you know that the Telangana chit fund industry is on blockchain? The seed traceability in Telangana is on blockchain. So I think there are a whole lot of applications, but I think it will become a little more common and people will start believing. And if you ask me, I think that will go beyond some of these applications. It will also get into more of digital assets, NFTs and all that, because the young generation is more Web3 native. So if you talk to a teenager, they don't have any confusion in their heads. They are very clear that this is the way to go forward. So beyond the enterprise applications, I think there will be more clarity on the virtual digital assets and kind of things also.
Rajesh, 5 years from now, where would you be?
I think it will become integral to everything that we do, whether it is B2B or B2C. But the interesting thing of any emerging technology, especially in India, is if there is one person trying to make a career out of it, there are 1,000 people trying to trick it. So that tricking will go on where the systems kind of get compromised. And that's where the future of compute comes into the picture from a quantum compute perspective. See, ultimately, why is blockchain immutable? Because of the underlying algorithms. The current classical computers cannot compromise, and they're based on what we call as the one-way trapdoor mathematical functions. But when quantum computing comes into picture, then it gets compromised very easily. That's where 5 years later, people will be talking about not how to do blockchain, but how to keep blockchain secure. And how can quantum or any other compute that will come to a play, but it becomes an integral part. It's like banking industry. Bank 15 years ago, if they had ATM, it was a tech-savvy bank. Today, if the bank does not have an ATM, the equation got completely flipped. So I expect the same equation to be flipped when it comes to blockchain, and focus will be on newer technologies.
I think good view. I think as everybody is talking about, when the Java came into picture, right? I must have bought at least 20 plus books on Java, and Java is norm now. Maybe it's absolutely because of many other technologies. Look at blockchain, right? Everybody is learning blockchain, and the kind of a learning which is happening on education, there are no concrete courses, right? Which if I teach a blockchain, people will say I have learnt a blockchain, but there could be another expert who knows more better. He will also say, I think skill set will be always available on the blockchain in the next 5 years. Today it's a challenge. All blockchain developers are very costly. I don't know why, because it's the same computing, same programming, the way it was a complex in the Java days. I think that's how we look at. Lot of skill set will be available. Lot of platforms will come. Less of a complexity to manage blockchain platforms. Lot of BaaS players. I think I have seen those days Oracle was not having anything. Now they are coming up with the BaaS applications on a blockchain. So I think a lot of blockchain as a service platforms will come, so that this managing, coding or configuring and make it more easy will be available. But while we do this journey, I think there are other challenges which will come up, right? Which is quantum. So how do we safeguard current technology? In a nutshell, I think government has already understood. Many governments has created strategies. Now strategy will be aligned with actual use cases. There are a lot of use cases already available. So we'll not talk more of that internet or a blockchain the way we talk today. right? We'll talk about many more business models, use cases, path-breaking UPI or path-breaking KYC or path-breaking lending or path-breaking lending against digital assets. Many more new business models will arise in front of healthcare companies or banks in the next 5 to 6 years. Could be example of fractional buying, selling, fractional lending, fractional ownerships. So which is not there today, it will be easily available out there. So in a nutshell, skill sets will be available, technology will be evolved as a bank, blockchain as a service, which is little complex today to manage or configure, and maybe many more business models will be coming up. The way we learnt mechanical engineering back in 60s, not I, but our ancestors, or followed by computer engineering, right, which is a new norm in 90s or 95. I am blessed with that degree. But I think new kind of a skill set, new kind of a courses will appear. And that's how we build a lot of platforms or building blocks to take on the economy, countries to the next level. Last but not the least, everything will be on marketplace. What we have seen in brick and mortar, digital. So now everything will be available on marketplace. Which one to choose? And which one to choose with my consent, right? So I think that kind of a sovereign control to the customers, as well as the opportunity for various services available, like they can provide loan on marketplace. Today we have insurance or we have some model like Paisa Bazaar, Bank Bazaar, but tomorrow every other commodity will come on marketplace. We have seen sharing economy around food or Ola, Ubers. I think more than 300 plus entities will go on sharing economy. So blockchain comes along with AI to bring a lot of trust out there. So as Pankaj said, it's a continuous journey. I think at 5 years we'll think of different challenge around blockchain, or maybe other technology we'll talk could be the solution for that in those days.
Well, absolutely. Your final comments as well.
I'll keep it short. I think 5 years later, probably most of the apps that you're seeing in phone might be built on blockchain. Like your social feeds will be on blockchain. Like you might see a Twitter kind of application coming on blockchain. You see your payment systems on blockchain. You see your identity systems on blockchain. You see your emails, health records, all of these are coming on blockchain 5 years down the line, and securing those data and applications. And of course, using that blockchain, you prove yourself that you are a human and not an AI.
Yeah, we might even have Forbes or CNBC TV 18 on blockchain. All right. Panelists, thank you so much for talking to us. It really has been a very, very informative conversation, and so many solutions, more opportunities, more problems as well. But that is something we will continue to tackle. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you, panelists, for that wonderful discussion. A quick reminder, everyone, we have created the Telegram channel, Namaste Web3. This is a movement that we want all of you to join. The ones who haven't been able to click a picture or scan that QR code, you can do that now. Please do join us. This is where we'll keep you updated about all the subsequent chapters, whatever is happening in the future. This is your one-stop shop to find out more. All right, I see still some hands up, so we will hold on to the screen. All right, well, it's now time for a fireside chat session, and the topic for the chat is tokenizing real-world assets. Now, tokenization refers to the process of converting real-world assets such as land, gold, property rights into digital tokens. Now, how does that happen? Companies are increasingly adopting asset tokenization for various purposes, including company securities, land, and industrial assets. To delve further into the topic of tokenization and tokenizing real-world assets, may I call again Manisha back on stage, and I would also like to invite CA Aishwarya Gupta, Ecosystem BD Head, India and Payment and FinTech Head at Polygon Labs, to join Manisha for this conversation.
So much conversation on blockchain, Aishwarya. Now let's talk about tokenization. And there's a way that people trade, own, transact, invest right now. How is tokenization changing all of that?
I think when you talk about tokenization, essentially, I want to start with a little bit basic, which is essentially like when you say, okay, we want to go out and talk about tokenization, there are two ways to do it. One is like essentially the way which has already existed. Like it's not, tokenization is not something new. A lot of people have already done that. But what the essence of tokenization at that point of time versus a tokenization that is happening today, there's a very big difference. The difference is blockchains, right? And when you talk about blockchains, and there's a concept called composability, right? And that is like one of the biggest game changer when you talk about it. Now, when you look at existing systems, database management systems, and everything like that, I mean, a lot of people say that the private blockchains will be coming into the picture. They will be going out and tokenizing everything like that. Why? Because probably public blockchains are not quite like safe, or there is a lot of scams happening. But like everything is happening in Web 2 as well. I don't know why we blame Web 3 for it. So that being said, essentially what happens is when you go out and tokenize something on a public blockchain, what happens is not only you're going out and opening the world to go out and verify you. Because today, like if you do it on a private chain, it's similar to like there are 5 people who are wallet guarding the information, and you have to trust those 5 people, right? A theory that is coming from 1992 through Nick Szabso. He wrote a white paper called God's Protocol, right? And he termed these third parties, these who are creating trust over the internet as God, because if you remove these third parties, internet is lame. You cannot do anything on internet, right? So now coming back to like, so that was the existing era. When you come into on the public blockchain, essentially all those things are something that you can verify very quickly. And with that verification, also what happens is you go out and talk about speed. Like when, in the earlier chat when Prasanna was telling that you need 40 days just to transmit the information about someone who's doing wrong, right? On a blockchain, the moment a scam happens, in minutes you get to know, you get notifications from PeckShield and everyone like that, telling, okay, hey, this is something which has happened. And within days, everything is solved. Like, forget 50 days where your information is getting transmitted. 10 days, the solution is out there, right? And why? Because everything is traceable. And that is the best part about this, that you're going out and doing it. So this is first. And the second is using and leveraging this information. You can build systems on top of it. Like one of the things that everyone says, if you learn on blockchain, it's evolving very quickly. That's the reason, composability. Let's say, for example, if you're going out and tokenizing a real estate project, right? And so the first step is, this is how, like, let me walk you through how the question which you have is essentially how the tokenization and everything is happening, right? So let's talk about real estate, one of the biggest things which people want to tokenize, and it's very difficult to do it. The first step is essentially, so there are 3 essential steps in tokenization. First one is you issue or create that online identity in the form of tokenization. Second is you trade. You create a buy-sell market around it. And the third is custody. Who actually holds the custody of this asset while you're actually trading it, right? So these are the 3 steps. So let's say if I talk about land. First step is how do you bring the ownership of that land on the blockchain? So that is like the very important step, how you're creating that asset on chain. Now, when you created this asset on chain, let's say there's one party who's created this tokenization of land on chain. That's the first thing. You have the tokenized version of it. Now, once this tokenized version is done, let's say there was a land worth 1 crore, you have 1 token created there. Done. So now, let's say there's another body who wants to leverage this. How you're leveraging it is, you go out and create fractionalization of this token. Now this 1 crore property, let's say you divide it into 1,000 pieces of like 1 lakh or something like that, right? And that way, now when you're going out and creating this, you do not need to tokenize again, because that's already done. So you're building on top of it. Now, let's say there are still people who probably might not be able to invest 1 lakh rupee. But you know what? Like there are a lot of people who know that the prices of this place and everything can increase. How do you bring those people in? That's where you go out and start a market where you can actually go out and bid whether this price of this property might increase or decrease. And that might be a 10 rupee investment, right? So even when I do not have the money to actually go out and tokenize everything or to invest in a 1 CR land, I'm still able to go out and with that 10 rupee investment, I'm able to go out and reap the benefit. So that is where the composability came in, where you have open systems, everyone is building on it. Then the second one is I've created the trading mechanism where you're going out and trading it. But, and the last one is custody. Now this is where I think a lot of clarity and everything is required, because when you go out and essentially custody it, it has to be someone which can tomorrow come back and ensure that there is a proper custody. Otherwise, like you have tokenized something, let's say tomorrow someone else without tokenization has already sold it. So it becomes useless. So that is where this custody comes in, that is where the regulations come in. And this is, I think, broadly the way in which the whole process would work in tokenization.
So Vital, well, that's tangible benefits clearly coming in via tokenization. So, you know, as soon as I finished my first panel, I sat there, Mr. Shenoy tells me, you know what, I'm not going to even subscribe to full Forbes. I will subscribe for one article that I need to study, and you will pay me for it, for reading it. How does he do that, and how does Forbes earn out of this? What is this sense of tokenization now?
So this is essentially where you are going out and you are tokenizing the ownership. And I don't know how in the current model of Forbes it can work, but
sell it to us, make it for us.
So like essentially, like very quickly, like the way I look at it is, today like we are paying, so the problem is you cannot go out and fractionalize, and the cost of doing that is very expensive. For example, let's say you talked about Forbes. I'm talking about, let's say, Ghana.com and everyone like that, where essentially I do not want to go out and subscribe for the whole month. Probably I just want to listen to 2 songs. Yeah, exactly. But if I do that in a Web2 system, the cost of doing it is so high that probably the benefits that as a company you will derive, because now you are getting those people also on board who probably were interested. Like there are a lot of articles that come out and I want to read them, but then they say you have to take a monthly subscription, and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But so you're missing out on those customer base. But essentially when you go out and create that system in a form of on the top of a blockchain, what happens is you are going into shared economies. And when you're going into shared economies, essentially the cost of doing all these things is essentially reducing to such a bit that you can go out and actually do it and still make money as a company. So you are happy. As a customer, I'm happy because now I don't have to pay for everything. So your customer retention increases. I am happy about all those things. And that is where essentially what happens is you're going to go out and have this kind of a word.
So, okay, that does increase liquidity for me for some sense. How would you look at the enhancement of this? And does it really make sense for retail as well as institutional investors?
It absolutely makes sense. So I'll give you a very simple example. This is coming from directly some of the conversations that are being derived from SEC and some of the thought processes which is coming from CFTC in US. So essentially, let's say I'm talking about one of the examples that we are doing on Polygon, which is Franklin Templeton. So Franklin Templeton is one of the biggest institution going in the world, which has some in $1 trillion their assets, right? Now they in US you have mutual funds, and everywhere you have it, but the mutual funds are something which is a very illiquid market. Right? We have a lot of apps where you can buy, sell mutual funds. But think about it, once you have invested in this mutual fund, can I immediately go out and sell it? You can, but there's a huge amount of paperwork and everything which is required. So what they are doing is, they're going out and they're tokenizing that whole mutual fund, the first mutual fund they issued in US, and pegging it to $1 and issuing tokens called Benji. Now, when they go out and do that, the advantage that they have is, first of all, the number of people who can invest, because in these kinds of like big funds where a lot of private equity and everything is involved, first of all, it's not available for general customers, right? For me, if I want to invest in it, it is not available. As an institution, if I want to invest in it, I need a 100K or a 500K check, which again, I don't have, right? But the moment you go out and tokenize it in the form of $1 and you enable it to go out and you perform your wallet gardens like KYC, AML and everything like that, and then on a public blockchain, it is available for me to actually go out and buy that. And this is exactly what is happening right now. Like, a lot of these companies are actually tokenizing all these things because people say that there's no liquidity. I say you give people something which they can buy. There's so much liquidity in the market that you will be surprised.
Okay, let's dwell on the part of the market integrity onto this and protection of my funds into this as well. Because as you said, there are just so many moving parts to this whole thing. It's already tokenized. There are more people that can come in as well. How does it, support, rather save, secure my money?
So, 2008, I'll talk about that. 2008, with this whole Lehman Brothers thing happening, right? And earlier today I was talking to someone who actually witnessed it right in front of his eyes, was telling his company, let's take all the money out, don't invest there. And because he was just he just had 3 years of experience into it, the senior consultant was like, dude, you don't understand these stuff, chill. And later on, 3 months later, he loses, the company loses half its net worth. So essentially the problem, when you talk about it, the problem is when you go out and tokenize the MBS bonds, which we were talking about in US, right? So all of them were happening inside closed doors. So you can have as much regulation as you want. As a CA, I can give it on paper and say that as a CA, you cannot go out and audit each and every record of the company. That's why all the reports that CAs go out and issue are always on test basis. And they very well mention this, that we cannot, this is the thing that we have, our suggestion that we have is on a basis of the data that we have used, which is 4 to 5% of the total data. So that is not always accurate to actually give a true picture. Now, so when you think about it from that perspective versus the nuances that this might create, I think the nuances are way, way, way less. Why? Because the biggest nuance which was there, you need a lot of regulators, a lot of approvers, not CRISIL, I think the companies which were there in US giving AAA rated things and everything like that on those where they were subpar debts and everything. So that is a very big problem where people are losing money. And when you bring all these things on chain, everything is predominantly very visible. And when it's very much visible, all those things go away. The nuance that I only see right now is because of a non-clarity of regulations. And this is where I think one of the things that with Telangana government, we are going out and doing in the sandbox, as I would say the first step which is being taken, is getting that clarity as to ownership of that asset. Once we have that, I don't think there's anyone in the traditional world who can go out and say, oh, you know what, that old version was better. Unless you wanted to make side money which at the backs of the normal people.
All right. Also talk to us about the decentralized finance, on what is it doing now and where do you see the potential of it when it comes to tokenization?
I think DeFi is actually going out and amplifying the impact. So another example which we are talking about today. So one of the companies in DeFi which is known as Ondo Finance, right? So Ondo Finance, essentially what it is doing is it is taking the government treasury bonds, it is buying them, and it is tokenizing those treasury bonds on chain. And now once this is put on chain, the purpose of DeFi here comes out to be going out and helping in creating that liquidity in the market, creating that market which it can enable to trade across the world irrespective of where you are because of the clarity that it has brought in. So I think that is where DeFi plays the key role. And one of the biggest challenges today when we look at it, so for bigger countries it's a zero-sum game where essentially let's say you look at US, you look at other markets in the world, and they have, if you look at their debt rates, it's 1 or 2 or 3%, right? But if you look at Indian market, it's hyperbolic 11%, 12% and everything like that. So that is where DeFi is enabling to go out and bring that cheap capital into the country and enabling that kind of a cheaper capital through these tokenized instruments, because that is essential. So look at it from a perspective, like if I look at my ICICI Bank credit card, it tells me that your annual rate of interest, if you don't pay, is 54% interest rate, right? While another example is if you go out and take a home loan, the interest rate is always increasing. I have never seen a home loan where interest rate decreased, right? And they will increase it, but if you have to get it decreased, you need to pay a fee to get it decreased, right? But, so that is one problem. Another problem which is there. So think about it, me going out and taking a home loan. So I took a loan, took me 15 days from HDFC, and the rates started from 6.85, rose up to 9%, where I said, chuck it, I don't want a loan, take the full money back. On the other hand, if I have a similar setup on Aave, and where I'm going out and taking this loan on Aave very quickly, within two minutes, I'm going out, signing up, taking the loan, putting the collateral, taking the loan, putting it bringing it into my Indian bank account and using that. Now, the capital that I have taken from Aave is actually going out and is dependent upon a curve which is essentially being talked about around the demand and supply. So if there's a huge amount of demand for that asset that I've borrowed, the interest will increase. But if there's no demand, the interest will decrease. So on Aave, I'm paying 1% for that capital, and on my HDFC, I'm paying 10%. So where would I go?
Okay, a couple of questions then. And on one side, of course, you've talked to us about some examples, but what industries, what assets do you think are absolutely ripe for tokenization? And the second part of my question is on how do you determine that the tokenized value is accurate for the product or the organization that we're looking at?
Got it. So, like, if you look at it from a perspective of what industries, I think the finance industry is way more ripe. It's like, it's about to go, like, you can say bad. But the point is, like, finance industry is one of the biggest use case where we see it. Because 40 years there has been literally no innovation in finance industry. So that is where that major thing lies. The second is a lot of illiquid markets, bond markets, real estate market. And apart from that, if you're looking at it from a perspective of invoices being tokenized and being sold for at a place where the capital is cheaper and everything like that. So I think these are the major places where we are already seeing a lot of tokenization happening. And then now coming back to, I think, what was the second question? Sorry.
How do you know that tokenization is happening accurate?
Correct. And that is exactly like the problem which I feel. Again, like when I'm going out and doing it with a third party, I'm believing this third party. Why? Because there is no regulatory overview and overlook, which tells me that, okay, whatever you have put in as an asset on chain actually exists and is in the custody of the government or a body that the government has created. So that is why this is something which is very essential. That as India, at least, we go out and we talk about it. We are not even talking about it. While in the other nations where I talk about, they're actually planning of implementing it. So we are we need to be way ahead, but we are not. And that is where I would like I think with these regulatory sandboxes and everything, we are striving towards that.
Well, absolutely. We will talk about those sandboxes, but Hyderabad, this is your time now. We have been talking on this stage, but is there something that you would want to ask Aishwarya or even our previous panelists? They're right here. If there's any question, any feedback, any doubt, anything that you would want to make a point on. Yes, please. Can we please pass the mics here? Right here.
Yeah, very good evening, everybody. It's very delighted, to learn all these capabilities of the blockchain. So one simple thing, why the government is not able to use this technology when it comes to the services that we provide. I'll just give a simple example. Whenever you come across a newly laid road, so normally what happens is after a week or two, somebody else will be coming and then digging it. It's the simplest example that I can everybody can correlate that. Why is it not happening? So that's it.
I think two things which are there. The first thing is about adoption in the sense of education, where that kind of a sense, I think if I talk about Indian governments, the state is way forthcoming as compared to most of the other states as well, where this kind of a education the level of education is there that they can be implemented. The second thing is, it's coming. I cannot disclose too much on this, but the government is not sitting idle. The government is already working on an infrastructure that is probably, as per my estimates, not further than 6 to 8 months. But till that time, we will see these problems. Once that comes in, I believe there is a huge amount of change that's going to come in when we talk about the Web3 adoption that is happening in India. So it's that much I can disclose.
Hi, it was great hearing you talk about Polygon. Could you also let us know a bit about ZK EVM, this new project that you have going on at Polygon?
I think ZK is a very essential part of blockchains. Why? Because essentially, like as a government, as an organization, you cannot actually think about putting all your data on the chain, which becomes discoverable once your details are out, right? So that is where zero knowledge comes into the picture. And essentially what zero knowledge does is, I have a very same example I think I've been taking since 2018 with Prem, is around cave door analogy, right? And how it works, very simply put, let's say I and Manisha are standing outside a cave. Inside a cave there's a door which is locked, right? So there are two ways in which I can make Manisha believe that I know the password. The first one is I take Manisha along with me, get inside, open the door in front of her, come out of the other side. Thereby I've told you the password as well, and I've made you believe that this is the password. This is the current state of blockchains, which is pseudo-anonymous. The moment you go out and understand one trait of it, you are able to make out each and everything. So that is where a lot of these things that you want the corporates to come on blockchain, you want the government to come on blockchain, they cannot. Because you cannot disclose all these things because they are very trait sensitive and everything like that. Now the other thing is where I'm again going to make Manisha believe that I know the password, which is like I make her stand outside the cave, and sorry for making you stand there. But essentially I'm making her stand outside, I go inside, unlock the door, come from the other side. Now in the second example what I've done is, I've not told her the password. But have I made her believe that I know it? Answer is yes, because I came from the other side and the door was locked. This is what zero knowledge is all about. Where essentially you're going out and proving something without essentially disclosing the complete set of data which is out there. So this is something where we are working on with Polygon, and this is already live. The ZK EVM is essentially a part of that only, where we are going out and creating that data layer on a different set. So understand this, like a lot of countries have data regulations. They do not want to go out and divulge their data. They also want to have shields. So for example, if I talk about, when you talk about real world assets, tokenization, right? BlackRock, the biggest name out there. Now when BlackRock tokenizes its assets, there are 200 channel partners through which it is going out and distributing that tokenized asset. And every channel partner which is out there, you cannot go out and disclose the terms in which you are dealing. Because all these 200 people will have a different terms and conditions. Someone will have a more commission, lesser, based on their distribution and everything. Sure. Now you put it on a blockchain, on a native nascent blockchain, you cannot do it because all the trade secrets will be out. Next day, everyone will be knocking the door of BlackRock and saying, hey, you are not giving me the best rates. So you cannot do that. So that is where you bring up shielded contracts. Where essentially what you do is you go out and let's say if I have a distributor with whom I am transacting, though it's on a blockchain, you're going out and only those two people can see the transactions. So this is where the next level comes in of shielding the transactions. Though it's on a public blockchain, so I'm just submitting a proof on the main chain, which ensures that everything is immutable. And also like within when the transactions are happening, you're creating those shields so that you cannot actually go out and disclose all that data. And this is what a lot of those governments and the enterprises would want to have, because that was missing in piece in the blockchain industry.
So a Web2 corollary would be perhaps a OTP-less like service for accessing something. So
you can say that.
So sorry, that was great example by the way. I just had a follow-on. So is this something that you're building in-house, or is it a forked service that you're building upon?
It's completely in-house, so fork can happen when the technology exists, right? ZK, it never existed like 6 months back. Right. There was nothing called ZK. We were thinking of 5 years, 6 years down the line, we'll have ZK.
So right? You're sort of pioneering this technology as...
Correct. The people who are actually within Polygon, Jordi and everyone, they've actually developed this technology, and we are the first ones who've actually launched a chain which works on ZK tech.
Right.
I am really intrigued. What do you do?
I am learning about Web3.
Clearly. Bang on. Thank you for those questions.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Can we have the mic there, please?
Hi, Ashwari. I'm Srinivas. I mean, most of the people here are all blockchain devs and geeks and all that. So I'm not one of those. I'm more of an NFT collector. So my question would be coming from that aspect. what is your view on like when we want to onboard more people? Like you talked about finance. US has already got states which support DAOs. India, we don't have any legal regulation for DAOs as such. So like there are VCs, there are angel investors, but then there are common people who want to get into that finance. So a DAO is a very great way to put little money in and maybe get more people and have a little more power to invest. So what are your views on that? That is one question. And the second one is, how do we integrate AI and blockchain? I mean, do you have any views on that? These are my two questions to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think if you look at NFTs today and DAOs, the structure of DAO, like decentralized autonomous organizations which are there, NFTs are like, they're both different concepts, right? DAO is a way in which you're going out and disseminating the power which people have over their maybe assets, like you can put it in a society form and everything like that. When you look at NFTs and you want to invest into these things, so that is where we are actually trying to go out and have those clarities, right? And if you ask me, do I have the regulatory clarity? I don't. I literally don't have that answer for you right now. But the good thing about this is like we're getting there. And it is essential. So there are two ways to get into all these things and everything. And I look at how, so I think one question that Manisha asked in her earlier one was, how do you see 5 years down the line blockchain being used, right? I see blockchain taking a complete backend space, right? There's no one talking about this is being built on Polygon and everything like that. No one is going to do that. What they are essentially going to be thinking about is how embedded that is that nobody even thinks about it. You call it account abstraction and all those fancy words as well. So this is which is there. So think about all those things, and there are a lot of people who are actually thinking about it. So one example which is not from the finance world, asset.money. So asset.money, what essentially they're doing, if you go out and Google them, you'll just, from a front end, you can never even make out it's blockchain. So what they're doing is, if you listen to a particular song, they're going out and looking at your genre and they're giving you some NFTs based on those genres. Right? So this is where you are onboarding people. Reddit is another example where the community was there. We onboarded like 12 million people on the blockchain without even making them realize that there's something called blockchain. How you distributed avatars them and then told them you can actually sell it, right? The moment people realized, oh, we have a $200, $500 asset, they all went and started learning blockchain, right? So that is where I think these things slowly and steadily people are going out and learning about it.
So regarding the Reddit, actually, you get banned from most of the Reddit communities if you say NFT. But the way you took it out was really great, digital, collectible, and got everybody onboarded. So also regarding AI and blockchain, if you can tell
AI
us.
and blockchain, I think they work wonders. To be honest, like AI is not something which is new today. AI has been there for a very long period of time, but essentially blockchain gives AI its wings. People think that, okay, AI came in, blockchain will fade. The answer is no, it's not going to do that. What happens is, let's say again, if I go back to a tokenization example, and this is something someone is implementing in Bangalore, where they're tokenizing real estate. Now, when you tokenize real estate, let's say 4 areas where probably the property could increase value and everything like that. Think about it from a country perspective. Is there a way in which I can go out and like help you to evaluate whether the prices of this property will increase where you don't even know it existed? That is where AI comes into the picture and says, okay, you know what, I'm going to go out, find the data which is there around every place, and I'm going to give you a prediction based on which you can invest in it. So now they're complementary to each other. It's not like you have a competition between both, but it is basically complementary. That is what I feel personally.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we have time enough to take one more question.
Thank you. Yeah, myself Prem Kasi, Chartered Accountant and Company Secretary. So I used to work with Aishwari on the initial stage of blockchain, and we have come a long way through. So my question would be on real estate tokenization. So currently I see a lot of companies, especially in India, also as well as other countries, they are on to this project where they want to tokenize the cars, the buildings, the hotels, so a kind of monuments, all this stuff. So two questions on this front. First thing, how the price mechanisms getting related to those tokens. Like we have a price mechanism offline. Let's take an example of a property, correct? And we have a demand and supply that is coming into online. I mean, when they are tokenized. So how these two are communicating so that there will be a fair value is getting added to the tokens as well?
So that is exactly, I think, first of all, Prem is someone whom I started my blockchain like official journey with. We started together in 2018, putting out a podcast together where we barely understood blockchain, to be honest. So yeah, that is where we are from. So now coming back to the question where which you have asked. So very simply, when you go out and tokenize something, right? Let's say I'm tokenizing a particular property. It has its value from the two perspectives. One is the circle rate which the government provides. The second one is essentially like always a market sell rate when you're actually going to buy, right? So the higher of both, whatever you feel is right, you can actually go out and tokenize at that value. Now, so for example, the property is 1 CR, right? And you created 50 tokens of it. So everyone's tokens value is 2 lakh rupees, correct? That is how this starts. Now, based on AI, for example, AI is giving you an input that based on these inputs that I'm getting from all of 10 different places, I feel that the property price might increase, right? I feel like that's AI, like let's say even not AI. Let's say you feel that in Goa at that place, the prices of property might rise. So that is where you started the speculation of, okay, I feel even like right now the price of one is 2 lakh rupees, but I am willing to pay 2.5 lakh rupees. And that is where the discovery of price goes on chain, and you no more are relying on anything on Web 2 side, but you've gone onto the Web 3 side where the tokens are trading based on the notional value that you have in your mind. So you don't need like a person to actually go out and update that, because it's something which is notional and which is based on your thought process or the AI's thought process.
And just a continuous question. What are the security mechanisms people like us can get if we buy those tokens? Like currently we have Surface Act offline. So what are the possible mechanisms that we can expect in Web3 space?
So mechanisms, I think there's just one requirement which I possibly say always is custody. The moment you understand custody is something, so for example, right now how these people are doing it, they're creating special purpose vehicles, SPVs, and using those SPVs, they're tokenizing the whole property. So the owner of the property is the SPV itself, and they are going out and doing it. Now, my only thought and the only thread that I have in my mind is, what if this SPV at the back end tries to sell it off while you still hold the token? And that is exactly, I also have that, where the regulatory clarity and the custody of that has to come into the picture, where let's say this is where the government plays the role. People say that there is no like in a fully evolved world, there is no requirement for government. I completely disagree on that. And this is why, because the government has its role, and it will always have its role to go out and create that trust which nobody else can create. If you look at INR, it's not like, a lot of people still feel that INR is backed by gold. I don't know how many, I'm not going to ask, but it's not. What it is based on is trust. It's just based on that trust that people have that our government will stand. Our government will be there to complete its promise. Can a private entity do that? For me, at least, the answer is no.
All right, there are more questions than answers here clearly, but thank you so much, Aishwarya, for taking time out for us today. Well, there's a lot of transformation happening, and as Aishwarya said, new things evolving, a lot of work being done. Tokenization is the way to be, and we'll keep an eye on that sector.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you, Aishwarya, for those insights and also the fantastic Q&A that followed. And one of the questions that came up was on blockchain and AI. So, of course, we are going to discuss that in our next panel. But before that, a gentle reminder, scan the QR code to pre-register for Unfold 2023 and get exclusive access to the discounted early bird tickets that we have been talking to you about. So we will just put it here for a little while. Yeah, I think everybody has it. So as I was mentioning earlier, it's a global event aimed at promoting blockchain, Web3, and the crypto ecosystem among investors, developers, and blockchain enthusiasts. So it's going to be bigger and better. So hope to see you all there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time now for the next panel of the evening titled Exploring the Synergy of Blockchain and AI to Propel Web3 Adoption. The convergence of blockchain and AI, artificial intelligence, holds immense potential in accelerating the adoption of Web3 technologies. And in this panel discussion, our experts will explore the synergy of blockchain and AI to propel Web3 adoption. Now, once again, Manisha back on stage. And of course, joining her stellar panel for the evening, Ramadevi Lanka, Director, Emerging Technologies, AI, Blockchain, Cloud, Government of Telangana. Welcome, ma'am. Sriram Ananthasayanam, Partner, Consulting, Deloitte, India. Vivek Madani, Head, Flipkart, Polygon, Blockchain, COE. And also put your hands together for Vivek Gupta, CTO, CoinDCX.
Okay, this is the last of the panels here and the most interesting one clearly, because artificial intelligence, I remember there was a lot of conversation that, oh, the blockchain days are done, it's artificial intelligence which has grown up so much so soon. And then came conversations on how artificial intelligence and blockchain, the convergence that is, makes matters even better going forward. Ma'am, I'll start with you first. And Telangana clearly has taken a lot of lead. There were conversations on how sandboxes have been created. So much work is being done. The commitment is on another level. Startups, entrepreneurs is something that is budding in this state. Do tell us first on what work is being done. And when you look at the convergence between blockchain and AI, what's your sense?
Sure. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you, Manisha. These two technologies, specifically, AI and blockchain, are very close to my heart because we have been working on this for quite some time now, Blockchain, yes, we have been working on it for almost from 2018. Incidentally, when I was talking to Vesh and Rajesh Rudu also, both of them said they also started working from 2018. So 2018 looks like a magic year for blockchain. I don't know why. So, yeah, for both of these technologies, it's a common strategy that we have for every technology for that matter, I head the emerging technologies wing in Government of Telangana, where we work with, AI, blockchain, cloud, IoT, robotics, you name it, any frontier technology is part of it. So for all these technologies, we do have a common strategy at a 50,000 level feet, if you look at it, We come out with, digital strategies or formulate policy frameworks for each of these technologies. Then we set up institutional mechanism to execute these frameworks. Third, we actually identify use cases within the government, implement pilots, and later, solve problems at population scale. So this is what we do for each technology at a higher level, And coming to AI, we are doing some wonderful work here in AI. We are working currently on more than 20 projects in AI. Of course, we do work, all these initiatives, in partnership with different stakeholders. It could be enterprises, industries, startups, foundations, academia. And each of these projects has a specific partner. That's the mantra for us, collaborate and work with partners. So 40, as I said, 50, more than 20 projects in AI with more than 25 partners that we are working with. And in different sectors such as agriculture, which is again an important focus area for us. And in AI, it's a very innovative approach that we have taken in agriculture. We take a particular crop like chilies, and across the value of chain of the crop, we are actually deploying different technologies. And initially in phase 1, we started deploying AI, AI for dissemination of best practices, crop advisories using chatbots, and so on, quality assaying. Like right now, it's done very manually, rudimentary way, the way produce is graded. So we are using AI for that. This is in phase 1. Of course, phase 2, we are going to deploy more emerging technologies, include blockchain for traceability, where you can really identify, where the entire, production cycle of chilies. So that, as you all, you may know, that chilies are being exported to other countries. In fact, I read an article somewhere, in one of the states, where, chilies are exported, the US FDA has actually rejected it, saying that there's a lot of adulteration. So when you actually implement blockchain, that brings in trust and transparency, So it's a so this is about AI, again, blockchain, as you rightly said, I can go on and on, Most of these companies, blockchain, small companies to big, they come and tell us, oh, we want to do this use case. And when they actually start sharing us on that, every use case that they bring to us, in one form or the other, we would have implemented it, We are always scouting for innovative use cases, to implement, to solve problems. Our primary, objective in leveraging these technologies or in adopting these technologies is to solve societal problems. As I said, in agriculture, to increase revenue to the farmer. If you look at blockchain, one of the areas, education credentials, this, it's happened a couple of years back, I think. Students or, young men from the 2 Telugu states apply for visa in US. They are the largest number compared to other states. So it seems the Consul General of, US, he told our minister, saying that while we are happy that most of the students from your state are coming to our country, but do something about these fake certificates, because, and he told us do something, So we implemented blockchain initially as a pilot, in one of the universities. So that's another area. And the classic example, as I said, is traceability, as somebody also spoke. So the number of use cases that we're using and implementing. And one more very exciting project that we did was, again, voting. And somebody was asking, how do you integrate AI and blockchain? You really don't need to integrate. You just use, they do complement each other, because AI is as good as its data is, The algorithm, functions based on the data that is fed into it. So blockchain actually brings that, trust, or when you put data on blockchain or the transactions on blockchain, it brings that immutability, that trust. So which actually, when this data is fed to the AI algorithms, it actually comes out with results, more accurate results. So you don't really need to integrate the solutions. And to give an example for the use case in voting, it's a application that we have developed. It's a mobile application. And the biggest challenge when you vote, when you go to a physical booth, what do? They check you. They actually verify whether you are the same person who is coming to vote, right? We actually did that by using artificial intelligence, facial recognition technology, and live detection, whether a person is really, is alive when he's actually registering for voting. So we used AI for that, and to secure your votes, Once I vote, is my vote secure? Has the vote casted to the same person to whom I'm voting? That again is encrypted and put on blockchain. It's a combination of technology. It's using synergy, synergy between these 2 technologies. And lastly, Sandbox, already Mr. Dilip Shanai has spoken about it. It's one of the most innovative, initiatives that we have implemented in India. In fact, in Dubai, the World Government Summit happened, and in fact, they invited me to share our experience in the Sandbox. So it's going global, that particular initiative. They were, representatives from UK, as other countries, but they really wanted to understand the India experience from India, because India provides scale and size, diversity, and so on. So, and the latest one, which was also mentioned, just before this even started, we were actually discussing on tokenization, That's one area. And as a proactive government, we always try to see, what are the challenges that the industry is facing. So how do we actually help the industry, the ecosystem, in solving these challenges? So we are working on coming out with a tokenization framework that probably could help, solve challenges. And I heard Vish talking many times, regulator is required, regulator clarity is not there. That's what we are trying to address, Vish. Yeah.
I was talking to you on the table earlier on whether it's Bengaluru versus Hyderabad and who wins the game.
Well, in terms of emerging technologies, since I can proudly say, Hyderabad is leading. Of course, Bangalore has its always advantage, first mover advantage. And you should hear our minister speaking, you know, we have overtaken them in terms of software exports. I don't have the numbers with him, you know, our minister would just spell out, you know, those numbers. So we are there, but you know, in terms of exports, we really, you know, I mean, the exports from Hyderabad far exceeded than that of Bangalore, and also I think GDP. Since I'm not in the domain, but I cannot give you the right numbers, we are, you know, probably in the next couple of years way ahead of Bangalore.
All right, we take your word for that. You talked to us about the voting numbers, the fake certificates as well. So that's part of the education, of course. But as far as finance goes, healthcare goes, what is the government really looking into for?
Well, healthcare, you know, that's a very important area. Right now, people are not sharing data because we have this concern, right? Privacy. It's like, how is my data safe? Is my data secure? But once we actually put these health records on blockchain, that brings in trust to the, you know, patients, and it actually offers enormous opportunities, you know, in terms of providing, enhancing patient care, treatment plans, you name it, you know, that's in healthcare. Then the other one you said finance, right? A very interesting application that I would like to share, which we did in 2019, I think. It's for the self-help groups. They're very poor women, you know, who take loans from government. It's at a very nominal percentage, 2%, 3% interest rate is given. So these women, they use that money for starting their businesses. It's only paid to women in the family, you know. So they actually use it for business and then they pay back to the government. So what we thought, you know, all of us know that unless you submit a collateral to a bank, you cannot get a loan. So what if we can, as a government, develop a credit score for these poor women who are paying back? You know, that incentivize their, you know, behavior, you know. So we actually implemented a blockchain solution. It's called Srinidhi blockchain, you know, solution or something. That women group is called Srinidhi, or the project name is. So that's a wonderful project. If it can be replicated, of course, we did a small pilot. It really opens up a lot of opportunities, you know, in terms of loan. Again, coming to another DeFi that you talked about, decentralized financing, I think, you know, that's one area where blockchain is going to play a critical role, especially peer-to-peer lending where trust is required, right? So that's another area. Yeah.
Okay. We will, of course, come back to you, but let's take first initial comments from rest of our panelists as well, and I'll start with you. So when you talk about AI and when we talk about blockchain, the convergence that is, which sectors, which areas do you see that being the most prevalent or ripe for?
So I think one of these, one example that sort of like, you know, came to my head, and this was as we were exploring deploying a large learning model for image generation, right, on Flipkart. I think there's a lot of legal considerations about like what AI models are really trained on, right, and if they're infringing upon like copyright, IP, trademark, all of that, right? So if essentially like AI could actually be trained on verifiable data sets, I think that would be like interesting, because then it allows for like a lot of enterprises that do not want to, you know, operate in the gray or operate like on the other side of the gray to adopt models that are actually trained on verifiable proven data sets. So I think that's very interesting. And if you think about it, there are you know, protocols, and there's a lot of like marketplaces where users themselves are sort of like now being incentivized to share and sell their data so that data can essentially be used, right? So I think that is definitely very interesting. And I guess like another one that we are pretty excited by is we're very into like token gated commerce and what that could enable. So like if users transactions or users memberships or loyalty with different brands on shopping platforms could essentially be made available to other merchants and other brands to be used, then it becomes like a little hard for like all merchants or brands who are not competent enough to be able to understand how do you actually like use a lot of on-chain data to target consumers, given that NFTs or tokens are just a completely new surface area. So essentially giving them AI-enabled tools to be able to like make better decisions on how to do token gating is definitely something that we are excited by. I think Aishwari spoke about the fractionalization of real estate, right? And how, in fact, like I think in Flipkart, a lot of people who made a ton of money from the recent payout, everyone was discussing on like what kind of investment opportunities you could look at, and like fractional investment into investing into fractional real estate was one of them. But again, like making decisions about what to buy, or like once you've bought like a bunch of these fractional assets, like how do you like, you know, keep optimizing based on what your goals are. I don't think like people will be able to like spend the amount of bandwidth to do that. So like the intelligence that like AI models might be able to offer to make those decisions, that's also like I think very exciting.
You know, apart from that, from a consumer point of view, it is always about personalized, secure shopping. How do you see AI and blockchain working in that direction?
Yeah, so I think as I was saying, right, like today data is something which in like at least like in certain use cases, like the kind of use cases that we are enabling, where brands will be able to enable loyalty or membership for users, and therefore like all of that data is essentially now going to be available on a public ledger, because we are building on the POS infra, right? So that's data that, you know, we'd eventually be able to like, you know, make available in an easy to like read manner for other brands, and for them to sort of like make better decisions about. So I think that is one thing that we are sort of excited about. And with respect to AI, not necessarily with the intersection of blockchain, I think content generation is definitely like something that makes a lot of sense in e-commerce, because being able to do in-painting and out-painting, where like you're snapping a photo of your living room, like rubbing off the refrigerator or like the television or any object, and then like replacing it with like the kind of object that you're potentially like looking to shop for, as well as like catalog images getting like 1,000 times better. And yeah, I guess like we would definitely want to train our own models, and we would want to train models that are trained on like verifiable data sets, as I was earlier mentioning. So if there is like, you know, like a verifiable, like people who are creating content, if their data is essentially like secured, stored on chain, and then made available to us, so that we know that we are using stuff that is actually like, you know, verified, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's also good for creators, right? I think like people who are actually creating content, and that data is actually being used to train a model, they should get paid. So like every time like a large language model is being trained on specialized data sets, and that the owners of that underlying data should actually have royalties flowing back to them, because, you know, they are contributing towards the AI model being trained, right? And that's not happening today.
Sure. Yeah. I also want to talk about the immersive experiences, and I did that a couple of times myself with Titan, and then C8 was giving tires this way, and a couple of other companies as well. How is that working right now? Because do you think, we did see investors' interest peak on that, but didn't stay there really. What is the work being done around those?
So I think we are probably like by far the most bullish on the fact that like content is going to be 3D in the next, I don't know, half a decade or a decade. Like it's really hard to predict when that inflection point will be there. But we started investing into 3D content sometime in 2020, and almost I think like, you know, the entire, like the largest sort of business for Flipkart is mobile phones, selling smartphones on Flipkart, right? And almost the entire smartphones collection currently has a 3D model. In fact, there's an experiment where like the image gallery is sort of like replaced by a 3D asset where users can interact with it, zoom in, zoom out, right? And I think we think that like we've just moved from content to where like stuff was like really low fidelity. So you started with like text, then you move to images, and then you move to like video, and each time the engagement's gone up, and like 3D is sort of like the next frontier. The other forms of content will continue to exist, but it's just that like the amount of engagement time goes up, as well as what we have seen and why we continue to invest behind it is that like people who interact with the 3D asset or like you're not able to place it in their space or like try stuff out on their face, conversion goes up, right? Because like their confidence in like what they are buying has suddenly increased.
Is there
right?
a data or a number to that in sense of conversions?
There definitely is. I don't think I can.
But is it high? Is it improving?
Yeah. It's pretty good, and it's improving with like you know, like more stuff coming in. So we are like now trying to animate 3D objects, right? So like you can't just see a phone, you can perhaps interact with it, right? Like the Nothing Phone 2 has this glyph light behind it, so we can like actually make the 3D asset animate. Or you open up a refrigerator and then you're able to like place objects inside it to see you know, how much space it sort of occupies. So all of this is stuff that we are doing, and we are seeing like extremely good results. And which is why I think last year we also did a pilot with a completely 3D rendered immersive shopping environment. Like I think the term metaverse is like very, very abused, and we also like went with it because like it's good for PR, like you guys pick it up. So, but I think essentially we saw that like users who went in and customized their avatar spent like 18 minutes inside of that space, which is like unheard of, like when you think about like, you know, you shopping on a 2-grid surface otherwise, right? So definitely I think like it increases engagement, and like today like most people are most attention is sort of like captured by social media, which is why like, you know, anyone who needs to acquire a customer needs to like, you know, pay a tax there, and therefore like, you know, you have to like think about like conversational, which is where like again AI comes in, or you have to think about social, which is slightly hard to do because you didn't start off with social first, and like there are like tons of social apps. And like this is very interesting where like 3D and like more game-like immersive environments, if you're able to like really figure out like how to build stuff that engages users, tells them a like much better story than a 2-grid surface, then we're likely to like hold on to them and also like bring more users in.
Fair point. That Sriram, this question is to you. So when you look at startups and entrepreneurs, how are you looking at them leveraging the AI and blockchain as a convergence?
Very interesting question. So, you know, many of them, for want of a choice of a niche area, for getting the right valuations and getting the right investors, are looking to solve a particular problem. And that particular problem, more often than not, is being solved by a particular technology, and not a confluence of technologies, if I may use the word. For example, both the speakers talked about, you know, you talked about metaverse, you talked about AI, you talked about blockchain. Now, in a future scenario, perhaps there could be a startup who would come and say, you know, the experiences that are getting created in the metaverse are created by an AI engine, basis the preferences of the avatars, who can be trusted, and their past behaviors and experiences can be trusted on a blockchain, basis which some specific personas or some specific pathways can be created for them on metaverse, and hence certain buying experience and hence certain revenue models. Perhaps I've not seen any of these coming into, because these are little, you know, you also need scale to get into that, and you also need multiple iterations to reach there, right? So confluence of multiple technologies coming together as a startup idea is a rarity, but perhaps if there is anyone out here, that's a Sonicon.
Okay. So, you know, I'm sure there are some challenges as well when you combine these two. I mean, as he said, it has been used and abused, and there's just so much work that has been done. But where do you see both of these technologies standing together, converging, and not always?
So let me give an example, right? Simple case of blockchain, you say, for nowadays everybody's talking of ESG and sustainability and circular economy and everything else. But most existing track and trace systems, if I may use the word, are within enterprise ERP software that extends from a centralized company into their vendors, or upstream or downstream. Depending on the muscle power of that entity, the downstream is long, the upstream is also long, right? But it never reaches the full downstream upstream, and it never has the full circular economy part. Perhaps if you think of a blockchain layer on top of it, right? So one may be running SAP, another Oracle, somebody may be running Tally, somebody might be a spreadsheet. So if you're able to establish the full end-to-end circular economy on that, then that's a real case of blockchain. Now assume you have this data sitting on that blockchain layer. Think of what it will do to circular economy and in terms of advanced analytics, in terms of analytics use cases, and what value. Now when you talk of that value, you talk of how much carbon credit somebody, you can trust the carbon credits that somebody is claiming to have. You can trust that the reporting that is happening on the new ESG regulations, you can trust those reportings. You can trust the valuations. So all of those things really go up. So it's kind of, garbage in and garbage out in terms of data. So trustable data driven by blockchain, which is an input into analytics, you can call AI, whatever you want to call, but into analytics and future of analytics is the base. Is this the foundation? If I really try to demystify, that's the basic building block.
Okay. We've of course spoken about e-commerce and various stuff that Mr. Radhavi Malanka also talked about. What are the use cases or what are the sectors or areas which you think AI and blockchain can converge faster into?
See, one I said is this whole concept of supply chain where I see a significant amount of convergence that is happening. But other than convergence, there are certain areas that really worry me. In a sense, in this new world of AI, and people talked about generative AI and the kind of fake content that is getting generated, and you don't know what to trust, when to trust, how to trust. So this trust layer, absence of a trust layer on AI use cases is really becoming a challenge. Number one. Number two is all the large language models that we're talking of. We do not perhaps now have a visibility on the data sets it has been trained on, so that the answers that we get is trustable. Let me give an example. Assume we create an LLM to train, say, on, if you've seen the India income tax book, it will be 2 or 3 big volumes. If I want to train people on those books, a model to train on those books, if that model has worked on some other extraneous systems, and that knowledge comes into it when I'm asking a question, what does it do to me? Right? So the trustability of that in terms of securing where that LLM has got inputs from, over perhaps a blockchain layer, allowing me to trust the future generative AI is going to be some, revolutionary, startup ideas, if I may use the word.
Okay. What is CoinDCX then doing when it comes to AI, whether it's about onboarding, strategies, investments, and initiatives?
We always believe that Web3 is a convergence of blockchain and AI. Right? Now, with both the technologies becoming more mature, we are seeing new possibilities unlocked. AI could actually play a very important role in terms of trading experiences, mitigating the risk, simplifying user experiences. But for us at CoinDCX, we believe one of the primary roles for AI in blockchain worlds is in the areas of security. And how do you basically make users' custody more secure? How do you make users' custody more secure without compromising on self-custody, while not compromising on UX? Right? So for us, we believe that custody is kind of a trilemma problem. Right? On one hand, self-custody, that is right. On one hand, you have self-custody, then you have UX, and then you have security. It's easy to solve for two. How do you solve for them all three? And that's where we see that there is an important role that AI can actually play. Satish talked about Octo, our self-custodial DeFi wallet. We are building it to simplify users' experience in the world of DeFi. We are bringing in all the protocols, DeFi protocols, and opening it up with a native mobile experience, right? So I think somebody talked about, creating a world where technology becomes transparent, right? Nobody needs to care that I'm actually dealing with a protocol. I'm talking about blockchain when I'm accessing it. And that's, I think, the intention with DeFi. We have very recently basically incorporated a continuous authentication mechanism built on top of a cognitive AI engine on our wallet. It's patent pending. It's largely to protect the users from malicious attacks. Another work in progress we have is where we are basically looking at trying to identify malicious smart contracts. So one of the biggest problems, I think, in the Web3 world today is its openness. The biggest advantage is its openness, right? Everybody comes, everybody is able to access, anybody is able to launch a smart contract. One way is basically you actually create audit mechanisms and then incorporate that in your wallet so that you can basically, whenever the wallet is interacting with this smart contract, you're able to audit that transaction, notify the user, and basically alert them of the risks. And that's another technology that we are working on. Other than that, we are actually incorporating it. We basically put it in our chatbots. We are actually using it in our personalization, because we are a super dApp, as we call it. And super dApp, obviously, you have to personalize the experience. But largely, for us, we truly believe that AI's main role is to actually enhance security of our wallet, and that's where our focus is right now.
So what kind of collaborations, what kind of researches is the company taking on?
In terms of AIC, I'll tell you this, right? So the kind of maturity that AI is right now, and that's one of the reasons why we are seeing so much of inflection, is basically because AI has come to a point where we'll actually start seeing a lot of application of AI. AI is old, right? But AI has been in research domain for a very long time. Now it's come at a point where people will actually start applying AI. And you'll start seeing a lot of application of AI to solve specific problems that industries see. For example, we are seeing problems in self-custodial wallets. So we're trying to apply AI to solve that problem, right? So applied AI is going to be one of the growing areas. For us, when it comes to application of AI, like I said, one of the primary areas is identifying where to use AI, strategically, and most importantly, for our users, where do we see the value to be added. Having identified that, basically upskill our engineers. We've got an excellent team of engineers. We already have engineers actually starting to apply that AI, so we're actually upskilling that. And, then partnering, like you said, with the industry experts, bringing in some of the expert institutions as well. So, identify areas, upskill, and partner. That's kind of our approach to AI right now.
Okay. This one is to you, ma'am, again. The whole base of this is that AI and blockchain in some sense will transform industries, transform the way we do work, transform the way companies will work or consumers will experience right now. And while, of course, panel after panel, we've been discussing on how regulatory is important, and you've said state is doing work, but is regulatory still missing somewhere?
What's the question? Is regulatory
still missing somewhere? We do understand that the state is working a lot into this, but is there a push? Is there a regulatory mechanism within which these companies are working?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer because countries across the globe are grappling with coming out with regulations for AI and blockchain. And yes, in India specifically, we do not have any regulations covering AI or blockchain. And recently at the G20 summit also, our finance minister was saying, we do not want to do anything or bring in any regulation that would stifle innovation, is very clearly she said. But at the same time, we are also worried about macroeconomic impacts because of these, cryptos or whatever. She did not name crypto again. But so, yes, that is exactly the reason why we actually started this initiative, Sandbox. And it's not just for Telangana that we are doing it, because a particular startup can have a solution that could fall into the realm of, or the jurisdiction of an RBI or probably SEBI. So our idea is, to actually identify regulations that are required for a particular use case. And if it falls under the jurisdiction of the state, yes, we'll bring out those regulations. But if it's under SEBI or, RBI, then we have actually formed an advisory board, group. The members representing from the industry, from the entire ecosystem. Great support we are getting on that front. So we will actually formulate or make recommendations to the particular regulators saying that this is a particular use case, this is the impact that it will have on the country, and these are the regulations that might be required to modify it or bring in. So this is what we are, in terms of blockchain sandbox. Yes, again coming to AI, again, we are hearing so much, from big AI experts, from Elon Musk to, Google hunters. So governments need to act to bring in regulation. But again, it's not so easy also to, identify. Again, it's a very tough challenge or work for the government. How do you balance, regulation without stifling innovation? Bring in regulation without stifling, innovation. That's the problem that the government across the world are facing. So probably, but at the same time, we need to see, or in terms of blockchain, we need to look at the consumer interest, investors' interest. If it's AI again, how do we ensure that it does not cause harm or not biased, in a sense? Because especially for the governments where we deliver services to citizens, based on their eligibility. If an AI algorithm identifies or says a particular citizen is not eligible for a service, that's a big, no-no for us. So how do we actually, tackle such situations? So it's a work in progress for the governments, and hopefully, certain regulations will come in a suitable time frame, balancing the innovation.
Well, you're absolutely right. It's ever evolving, so you don't know what kind of regulations to make. Do you miss regulations? Do you miss regulations?
Yeah, for sure. I think any builder or operator in this space, of course, wants this to be regulated. But as Aishwari said, I think there are steps being taken, and also there have been enough guidelines that have been issued as well, which at least in the interim sort of give some sort of legitimacy is how we would hopefully legitimacy, and we'll try to look at it optimistically, right? So I think there was a certain notification that came in last year around KYC for anyone who has a platform for VDAs. Then there was this came under PMLA this year. So I think there is some amount of legitimacy that's coming in. But yes, a more coherent, overarching regulatory framework, and also there's a lot of stuff on tax also that needs to be clarified, definitely would help. But I guess I agree to an extent that the industry also needs to reach a certain scale where it becomes, we create the impact so that there's a equivalent of a business case to be made to the government, so that then they go ahead and sort of take this to the logical conclusion.
Sriram, how would you look at the industry right now? I mean, do you think there's enough dialogue happening, or is it something still missing?
See, I think a lot of the companies are representing to government in terms of what needs to be done, and there are a lot of working committees that are being currently set up in terms of looking at this. However, government is pretty clear that crypto is bad. Everybody has made that statement loud and clear. And again, the question of stifling innovation with regulation, there are a lot of purists who would believe that, in the absence of a public blockchain, a private blockchain is not a blockchain itself, right? So people make that statement as well. However, I think we have much past some of those dialogues, and we are seeing the real utility value of the technology. Now, in terms of specific regulations, multiple use cases are coming in. I got a particular case where somebody bought some land in Decentraland in, using an IP address in somewhere in Singapore, sold it, made $100,000 money, and wanted to repatriate it to India and convert it into rupee. And they came to a tax office and said, tell me what is the tax implication. Right? So the whole, the number of tax laws, the international laws it hits, there's no visibility. Nobody has a clue. So there are many first of a kind such conversations that are hitting with blockchain, NFTs, tokens, etc. When it comes to AI, the challenge is even more, right? In terms of India's privacy data protection bill is now coming up in the monsoon session, is what we had told. What is it going to say in terms of right to be known, right to be forgotten, right to have control on my data, right to assent, right to withdraw that? All of that will have a significant play in AI models. Right? Today my behavior you are tracking and you're going to give me some insights. Tomorrow I partially withdraw some of those aspects. Is the data going to be stored? Who is going to monitor? Who is going to police? Who is going to take care of my own rights? Lot of questions. I'm sure enough knowledgeable people in the government are tackling that. But these regulations, the best thing for the industry is that technology is moving faster than regulations are coming, which is the ideal state to be in. Because if regulations get ahead of technology, probably a lot of things will get stifled.
Absolutely. And this is the time again where we open the floor for you. So whether it's about AI, blockchain, technology, the way it's changing our lives on a daily basis, the kind of work that is being done, if you have a point to make, this is the time.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful session. So my question, I have two questions basically. Number one, when we're talking about AI and blockchain, So is it only about the data which is getting stored and it should be secure? Or are we already talking about, making the AI embedded in the protocol itself so that it can also identify which node or which validator may go for 51% attack or Sybil attack? Like, is this one of the use case of AI? Are we also exploring that? And second question is, when we talk about Web3, we have been building most of our things on public layer blockchain, which is either Bitcoin or Ethereum. So is India also planning, or should India also come up with a public layer 1 blockchain? That's the two questions.
So the answer to the first question is a simple yes. Yeah, protocols will actually integrate a lot of AI deeply into the system. I don't see AI playing an external part in any of the technology systems, in fact. I think AI will be one of the most deeply penetrated technologies technically. Right? I didn't quite catch your second question. What did you mean? The question is, do I see AI basically becoming part of the blockchain layer itself? This question?
So, thanks for the first question. A reply. And the second question is more about, we have been building on Bitcoin and Ethereum mostly, right? So public layer 1 blockchain coming from India, where our layer 1 blockchain and our developers building on it.
There is Polygon, right?
Polygon is mostly L2, right? So
yes, I mean, yeah. So we'll have blockchains coming out of India. That's definitely going to be the case. In fact, I think I have said this in multiple forums. I see Web3, India playing the role of a driver. I mean, we are definitely one of the technical prowesses globally. I mean, we actually power a lot of technology globally. I wouldn't say everything, but largely. But when it comes to Web3, obviously we have to play the role of a leader, driver. So there is obviously going to be a lot of role that we'll be basically seeing coming out of India. With India basically launching a lot of blockchains, probably even optimizations on blockchains, typical solutions, zero knowledge based blockchains, etc.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is two use cases you have told. One is on Singapore fraud case, and one is on ESG sustainability and carbon credits exchange. How it differs? Like, you are get confused. One is on same thing, when you exchange the carbon credits to a blockchain, same your Singapore use case will be replicated here, fraud case.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk about a real fraud case that happened in Singapore. This was a fictitious query that came from somebody, and we are trying to build our own practice. So, do not hold me to that somebody did defraud in Singapore, right? So the first part on circular economy, what I said was there are multiple disparate entities in a value chain. Many of them are sitting in different types of systems. The ability for them to connect to each other and have a common track and trace or chain of custody on something that is flowing from point A to point B and going back into point A can be enabled through a blockchain layer, helping you define carbon credits and circular economy and ESG reporting. That is what I said. So that is absolutely not related to the other part where somebody bought perhaps land in Decentraland using Indian money, converted into dollars in an exchange, and that he or she sold, made a profit, wants to repatriate to India. What happens? That's an fictitious example I gave in terms of what all tax laws, GST laws, international PMLA or FERA, what all it hits, nobody knows, right? Those are some of the questions that will get asked when this becomes really big and grows, and that's where regulations will have to come and address, is what I said.
So who stands to gain until the regulations don't come?
See, until the regulations do not come, I would expect every law-abiding citizens, like the Honorable Finance Minister said, have to declare the profits that you have made and be a law-abiding citizen, and not to brush things under the carpet, because the arms of the law are long.
Yeah, we know that dialogue. Yeah.
And very long.
Yeah.
It'll catch up with you.
I have a question. Can I? So, ma'am, Rana ma'am, especially for you. So, I was building a project during a hackathon. So, this was for a electronic health record. So, the main idea was to build a decentralized platform for users, and another aspect was to get users like research companies, so that users can sell their medical records themselves. like total control. So we faced two problems as a team there. So one was like normal users, like us people. Those are not into tech. How can they like basically interact with MetaMask, like remember those phrases? Like, is there different alternative to it? And the other question is that, suppose like for, let's take this example. Suppose we as a patient, like give the medical record, like or to the research company, like get some intensive. But now the data goes outside of the like blockchain system, right? Blockchain network. They have this CSV or JSON file where they can use their machine learning algorithms and train them. Now they have this raw data. They can again sell it to other companies, other profit, like make profit. How can we deal with that?
The question is for me?
Anyone can answer, like.
Yeah, the first one that you said was
MetaMask.
Health records, right?
Yeah,
health
health
records. So as he mentioned, the UI should be simple. Whatever technology you use, whatever, in fact, when we go to the government department, it's a learning for us. Recently, we wanted to implement this use case called invoice discounting, where, contractors pending payments are there, and using that invoice, they can avail loans. So it was in partnership with a blockchain protocol company, so they were also part of us. I'm just giving you this example, So that particular blockchain company, what they went on explaining about blockchain, how it helps. At the end of the meeting, the contractors were so overwhelmed with the technology thing, they backed off from implementing that solution. So technology can be at the back end, but it should not, hinder usage, or the UI should be as simple as possible, intuitive. That's number one for health records. And second, you said if they actually sell the data for, to different people. In fact, we are coming out with a data management policy framework for agriculture data sets. This is because we are focusing on that sector currently, which can be extended to other sectors. Because as he said, Government of India is still coming out with a law. We don't have an act or a law in place to secure private data. So we are actually coming out with a data management policy framework. What it says is, if you are collecting data, personal data or PII data from an individual, you have to obtain his consent, number one. And you also need to indicate the purpose of the data for which you are collecting. So tomorrow, if that person who collects the data, does not honor that, contract or whatever it is, then he's liable for punishment, or certain, legal actions can be taken against him. But of course, as a citizen, common citizen, it will be difficult for us to go to a legal, lawyer or somebody. So what we are putting in place is simple redressal mechanism, grievance redressal mechanism, where a citizen can make a complaint. It's still in work in progress stage, saying that I've actually, shared my data for this particular purpose, but it is being used for something else. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if that is all the questions. Yeah, okay.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Prateek. My question is to Ramadevi, ma'am. I would like to appreciate the Telangana government's initiative towards blockchain implementation in teach-aids and plus education sector certification. So I'm interested to know in which other sectors immediately we would be implementing this blockchain and AI. Plus, is it possible, as we were discussing with a past member, a CA, who was talking about tokenization into real estate sector. So is government working towards it? If it is working, then what timeline we can expect to have a regularity over those tokenization into real estate sector? Thank
you. Regarding the first question you asked about the use cases, right? So I look at the public distribution system, while in retail or in the private sector you call it a supply chain. In government we have huge public distribution systems. For example, if you look at food distribution, FDS or something it's called, the budget that is allocated for that is around 2,000 lakh crore, which is roughly around $20 billion or something. That's the kind of scale that we are looking at. So for such projects, especially in those systems, again, these are different reports. I'm not vouching for that accuracy, but they say 30 to 40% of of it goes in pilferages or leakages. So if you can really, address this problem, you're going to save huge money. This, at the end of the day, it's our taxpayers' money, right? So, and also, it can actually reach the targeted beneficiaries. AI, if you use AI and identify the right beneficiary, so AI and blockchain is a classic example for this particular use case. And I'll also tell you one example. We went to the civil supplies department that looks into this particular, procurement and distribution of food grains. So he was an IPS officer heading that, So he said, we explained them, him about the blockchain, the inherent strengths and all, how immutability, tamper-proof and all. After listening everything, he said, can you do me a favor? Can you do me one small project, he said. What is it, I asked. He said, can you help me trace the gunny bags in which, we were taken back. What, you want blockchain to track gunny bags? Then he said, don't, trivialize it. I'm spending around 350 crores annually on gunny bags. We are supposed to reuse them, but again, they get lost. So, there's so many use cases. That's one. Second, as Anand said, we are also working on carbon credit. For example, now because of trust and climate change, there are a lot of projects that we're implementing from, replacing conventional street lights with LED lights, There's so many carbon credits that are available with the government, but they're not sure or not aware probably of how to, trade them. So we are actually right from generation of these carbon credits to trading, we're actually, of course, it's 3 startups are involved in it, right from, capturing the generation of carbon credits to MRV, it's called monitoring, verification and recording, MVR. And then trading, So different 3 kind of startups are actually being engaged across from end-to-end solution. This is the second one. And third one that we are looking at is, if you permit.
Please, yeah.
So, is again, government services. Like, there's so many schemes that are actually, rolled out by the government. It could be like, if you're following the Telangana, programs, is Dalita Bandhu program, BC welfare program, and so on. So for these programs, in my view, as a citizen, I should not submit an application. As per census data, you have my information. The government is supposed to have this information. So, okay, in this particular village, there's so many people belonging to this particular caste or whatever it is, and should automatically, and bank accounts are already there, tied to Aadhaar seeder. Just the, benefit should directly get transferred to the citizens without any pain, painless. So that's the third use case, which is not really practically possible, but that is something like, I would love to actually have it here. Time frame you said, right? This is the first kickoff meeting that we had today, maybe others. So in a couple of months, I would say, because it's the first of its kind that we are doing, even we don't know the path that we are treading on, because it hasn't been initiated anywhere in the country, So it will take a while for us to understand what exactly is the animal that we are trying to tackle. And probably after 1 or 2 meetings, you definitely understand, the depth of it and come out with a time.
Can I say something? Just to add on, this is not a technology problem alone, right? Let's not look at some of these problems from a technology lens alone. If you're trying to tokenize a land parcel, that tokenized parcel, you should have trust, which means the ownership, what you call Genesis Golden Record, you should have absolute trust that this belongs to my land, I am tokenizing and giving it to 100 people. If you're buying, you should trust that land belonged to me. Now, if I'm not able to trace the origin of the land right from the moment the land was denotified and build that full trust, this entire tokenization is garbage in, garbage out. It's completely waste of time, money, energy. So it's not a technology problem alone. It's a problem of business. It's a problem of governance. It's a problem of regulation. And yes, technology is the means to solve one of those problems.
He put it in the right way.
All right. Looks like there are no more questions. So we thank our panelists. Thank you so much coming here, sharing your experiences with us and the real life. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the panelists were faster than me coming to the podium. I wanted all of you to stay back. Can I request everyone to please come back on the stage? I would like to also invite Mr. Kiran Vivekananda and Ms. Anjali Kakkar along with all the other panelists to join us on the stage, and we would now like to unveil a very special book which is called Fundamentals and Guiding Principles of the VDA Industry Volume 2. This would also be our photo op. The books are all here, and very soon we'll also be putting the QR code for the book for all of you to have access to over here. So once the book is unveiled, you can copy the QR code. All right. Yes. A big round of applause, and can we all pose with the book? Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. And the QR code is now all yours to get access to this book. Ma'am, I'll request you to wait. All right, all the startup founders, can I please invite all of you on the stage? Young startups from Spot Spreads, Equity, Zoth, and Rights for Life. And all the stakeholders as well of Web3 regulation. Web3 regulatory sandbox. All right. Okay, now we have the entire list. Can we have all of you here on the stage for a photo op? Can I also have the dignitaries, please? Mr. Shania, come. Thank you. We'll request everybody to stay back. All right, thank you so much for being such a lovely audience. And the evening was made a big success, all thanks to you and thanks to our panelists for all the lovely sessions. And with that, we bring a close to Namaste Web3 Hyderabad edition. Hope you have joined the Telegram channel Namaste Web3, the movement where we are going to keep you posted about all that is going to happen. The code, can we have the code again? Yes, so the ones who haven't been able to scan the code, yes, this one's for you. And a big thank you to everyone once again for being a wonderful audience. And now it's time, yes, for a round of applause for yourselves and the panelists. And yes, now let's have dinner. Thank you.